So recently I watched a debate that involved someone called Freda Wallace, in which she was very drunk when she was already there, got more drunk during it to where her co-panelist was having to tell her to stop drinking, had to keep telling her to stop interrupting him even though they were on the same side and they were arguing the same point. She did a video about it, which she has called The Witch Trial of Miss Freda Wallace, Infiltrating the TERF Reich. This is my response to being part of a debate with Helen Joyce at the IEA on the 25th of the 9th, 23, and the subsequent attacks on social media which it led to. Bearing in mind this person was very aggressive off the bat. I say off the bat, it got more and more as it went on and she got drunker. You know, things like talking about her penis in a room full of rad femmes, which I'm sure went down really well. You know, over-sexualizing herself and then complaining about trans people being sexualized. Generally making not a huge amount of sense. Every answer she gave seemed to bear little to the question that was preceding it. Saying all kinds of insults about people. Just general bad behavior, general, terrible advocacy, terrible representation. And she has said, "It was a difficult thing for me to do and I felt the effects for it for weeks after. I still maintain that I did the right thing in agreeing to do it, but I would not do it again in this kind of context. This was probably the only opportunity I would ever get to speak directly to the people who had tried to directly harm me, have they, over the course of the last 2 years." So yeah, right off the bat, it doesn't seem like she learned anything, but we'll have to see. Like, to me, it's very much throwing the victim complex in there when it kind of seems like both sides are as bad as each other. It doesn't really matter at this point, like, who threw the first punch even, because it's such a self-perpetuating thing. Like, the TERFs shout at the trans shout at the TERFs. And for some reason, whenever we get on stage and whenever we actually get to talk to these people, it's always idiots like Freda that just want to give people the runaround. They don't want to actually discuss the things that they're there to discuss. And they just want to throw out conspiracy theories that suggest that the world is transphobic and everyone's mean except them or some shit. I don't know. It's a waste of time. This person says this was probably the only opportunity they would get to speak directly to these people, and she completely blew it as far as I can tell. Anyway, let's see what she has to say for herself. So this is...
Hello, and welcome to the witch trial of Miss Freda Wallace.
So straight off, one British ContraPoint skinwalker was not enough. We've now got a second.
Oh, hello, Freda here, and welcome back to another video. Now, first of all, I'll just explain what I'm going to do in this video. I'm going to have a look at a debate I did. That wasn't really a debate, but it was a debate set up by the IEA in London back in October, which I attended with Helen Joyce and Peter Tatchell and Mark Glendenning, who works with the IEA. Now, first of all, it's not a debate. It was never meant to be a debate. I didn't go...
It was definitely meant to be a debate. What you wanted to do is irrespective. She's probably going to say that she went there to disrupt the conversation. I don't know what the point of that is. What they tend to do is be like, well, you're having this conversation, but shouldn't we really be talking about X, Y, and Z? Which are things that generally are being spoken about, just not at these particular panels. So it just makes it sound like you went to the wrong panel, and now you're trying to fuck it around because you don't like conversations being had, which are going to be had with or without you anyway.
There to debate Helen Joyce about any of the things she pretends to care about.
Pretends to care about. Let's see how we substantiate that, because it's not like this person and Helen Joyce actually know each other. And if Helen Joyce was doing the same thing, being like, well, you're just pretending to care about this kind of stuff, I'd still want to see evidence. I was more favorable to her in the debate because she wasn't acting like a fool, but
You'll probably know who Helen Joyce is if you follow me. Helen Joyce is most famous for writing the book Trans. She has no expertise in gender studies. She has no expertise in sociology.
Nor does this well, maybe they do actually, who knows. They have all these books behind them. If I may say, having this many books behind you and being so abjectly terrible at these debates, maybe it suggests that these books haven't actually helped you, and it's unclear if these are just not very good books, or if it's more that just you're not really getting much out of them, or you just look at things and confirm your own worldview through them, Like, we've got gender psychosis, for example, the Quran, interesting. It changes. There's been some other ones. There was a like Chelsea Manning book and stuff like that. But hey,
She has none of that. Helen's expertise is basically her own prejudice, and her book.
nice. She puts the boot in so much, but doesn't show anything. You know. I hope we get some substantiated criticisms at some point.
Is like 13 chapters of reasons why trans women especially, are a problem to society, which she thinks she's got the answer for, and that is it. That's what it should say on the cover. And
it's great that these people can just summarize a whole book by saying, well, it's basically just transphobia. You're not going to show any excerpts from it that support that, presumably. Maybe she will. This seems to be mostly shown in the debate. So hey, you'll get to see what I meant. Hopefully she'll cover some of the bits where she was being ridiculous, and then we've got some Twitter stuff as well. Nice. So yeah, it doesn't appear that, you know, she can just stick the boot in on whatever issue she wants. It's like I can sit here and be like, well, Freda Wallace, she just shows up to be as rude as she can to people. You know, do I know that? I know that she disrupts conversations because she said that that's what she does, but I don't know. It's easy to just make things up about people because you know your audience will, like, you know, froth at the mouth for it because they hate her as well because they can't stand any negativity around trans either.
I'm not there to debate any of that. I'm there to create a performance, and that is what I told Mark I was going to do.
Create a performance. Sure. I mean, she certainly did. I'll give her that. You know, talking about your penis in a live setting like this, like the debate, should I say, is definitely a performance, whether it's a good one or not.
I'm respectful. I'm happy to go along with the debate, but I do say things.
Respectful.
Things that I use within my other performance work, when I do my performance poetry, when I do my public speaking as performance.
I'm going to say something. You really shouldn't be basing your debate style on when you do slam poetry or like performance poetry. Performance poetry, like Jesus Christ.
Performance and other things, if you follow me, you might know about. So I was going to do it in that way, and I showed Mark what I do, and he was like, yeah, well, he's a classical libertarian. He's a part of the Bohemian Society. He loves anything like bohemian and anarchistic art and all that kind of thing. So
this debate performance was not anarchistic art. What are you talking about?
He totally got what I was talking about. But Peter Tatchell is a human rights campaigner. He's a very moderate.
So is it a performance just being loudly wrong about things now? Is that where we're at?
It's not that he's a moderate voice. He's just, he sees things from a much wider focus. So he does get things wrong sometimes on trans issues, and I've had those conversations with him. And to Peter's credit, he listened to me and he wanted me to be part of this. So I am in Peter's debt that he did include me in this, but we do have a little. You can see in the debate that we do disagree, and that I think that's fine. It's just I'm a little bit interrupty.
Yeah, she annoyed the crap out of him.
Because you've got to remember, I'm not 1/4 of a debate there. The debate has the term transgender in it, and I'm the only transgender person in that room, and I don't think that is respected at all. So, because they don't think...
Mate, it was also a debate about women, and there was only one woman in the room. Did you respect fucking Helen Joyce? God, the narcissism is palpable.
To me as a person anyway, most of the people in that room are LGBT Alliance people, Sex Matters people, Fair Pay for Women, the lobby groups basically, that don't actually care about women. And that's what I talk about. So we'll go into it. And
they don't actually care about women. So she's going to come in with like a super biased perspective, basically. So that's great. No open-mindedness. No, I'm there to do my thing. And that's what she does, by the way. It literally doesn't matter what people are going to say. She's just going to rattle off a bunch of shit that she already wanted to say, which is not difficult. Anyone can do this kind of shit. I could do that easily if I had little enough dignity that I decided that's what I wanted to do. But if I had that kind of opportunity, I wouldn't be squandering it on some pretentious fucking performance piece that basically amounts to getting drunk and acting a fool in front of a lot of people that don't agree with me. Like, to me, that'd be an opportunity to, like, try and build a bit of a bridge and try and find some common ground and talk about what makes sense and what would actually be a compromise, because clearly compromise is needed. There are areas where trans rights and women's rights do kind of clash a little bit. And yeah, we probably need to talk about it. But someone like this doesn't want to talk about it, but still wants to show up to the debates anyway, which means that they're a complete disservice to the women, the trans people, everyone. This person is only out for themselves, and I don't think this person should be calling themselves an activist or getting involved in any of this kind of shit, personally. Not unless they seriously sort their fucking brain out.
And as it goes along, I'll chip in and because some of it isn't quite clear, and the lighting in the video is terrible, the sound is terrible. I don't know who set it up, but I'll talk through it and
even putting the boot in on like the production and stuff. Okay, nice.
Explain to you why I'm calling this the witch trial of Freda Wallace. It's because that's what I set it up to be. I did this in Twitter chat spaces. I set up a
This is so fucking pretentious.
Twitter chat space with transphobic people and called it "Trans women are women, prove me wrong." And I did that because I knew they would all go mask off and be abusive within that chat space. And I've got them basically being the...
So you like bait people. Again, what's the point? What are you achieving by like reaffirming everyone's worst thoughts about trans people by being the worst version of a trans person?
The worst. Now, that is what I tried to do here, but because it's a bit more respectful, it's in a lobby group Tufton Street office, you don't get that kind of thing you would get on a chat space, but the energy is there and you will feel it.
Well, yeah, because it's an actual debate. Oh my God. Can you imagine? I just can't get in the head of someone holding a Twitter space and then being like, well, that went well. I'm going to do the same thing in an official debate in front of a live audience, most of which are probably against me. Like, what? Oh my God, this is annoying me already. Like, I already know what this person is like and how they operate, so I guess I'm kind of going hard on the off, but hey.
So let's get into it, and I hope you enjoy it.
Listen, if you're going to call yourself an activist and put yourself out there as an activist, you should be able to handle some criticism, that's all I'm thinking.
See you on the other side. Okay, let's get into it. Let's get into the introductions and what it's all about. Okay. There's me with the whole my tights, which I'll get into that later, but that was my little wardrobe malfunction.
Yeah, she's in like fishnets. Everyone else, like, he's in a suit. I mean, he's not got a jacket, but you know what I mean. Like, she's smartly dressed, so is he. And we've got this person with like fishnets and like thigh highs on. Like, come on.
Function. I'm not impressed already. Pour that red wine.
And have the great pleasure of chairing evenings.
So it was all very nice. It's a lovely room.
Is to promote the institutions of
but all the audience, remember, the audience are all LGBT Alliance people and Sex Matters people and all their cohorts.
Jesus Christ, complain about the sound. Fuck me. Just use a completely different mic for this part, I guess. Great. Good job.
Ideology, a threat to liberal values. In support of the motion, we have Mark Glendenning and Helen Joyce, and against the motion,
although she's learned how to do her hair, I'm glad of that. She's not showing off these kind of bits anymore. That's good. That's progress. I'm glad to see that.
Have Freda Wallace.
I'm not against the motion. I just reject the whole thing. I'm there to reject the whole thing, not.
You're not against the motion. You're just there to reject the whole thing. So what's the point then? Just be another cunt on Twitter fucking complaining about everything. Why not just do that? Give your seat up to someone who actually gives a shit about issues and about having conversations and dealing with more specific shit.
Not to be part of a debate. Remember that.
Guys, please. It makes sense me making a fucking twat out of myself when you remember that I wasn't actually there to debate in the first place. Well, then it's like, why are you there? Okay.
Trans movement advocates for the recognition, acceptance, and legal rights of transgender and gender non-conforming.
But it's human rights. It's not.
This is according to advocates.
Wow, I'm so glad she made that distinction. I wouldn't have thought of that otherwise. Who fucking cares?
Weighted progression of liberal ideals for a previously oppressed group.
That's not me breathing, by the way.
We're not oppressed because we're trans. We're oppressed because you decided to make us a problem.
What? Oh my God, this person doesn't understand anything. I hope one day, I don't know how old this person is, I really hope she's like younger than me, because it freaks me out hearing people be this ignorant and somehow having been alive even longer than I have. But yeah, this is ridiculous. Like, people aren't oppressed because people just decided one day to oppress you because they've got they need someone to like scapegoat or something like that. It's because when we were in tribes fucking millennia ago, we'd see other people from other tribes and like fucking kill on sight. That's like evolutionary, because if you're not going to do it, they'll probably do it to you and then they're the ones surviving. We still have remnants of that. Like, you know, you see someone who looks different to you and you just kind of feel disgust because you've not seen that before and is weird to you. That's kind of the remnants of that. I mean, to me, that's where bigotry comes from, and it's something that's innate to all of us. Someone like Freda Wallace, she wouldn't be bigoted in like the most obvious sense of the, oh, that person's different to me, therefore I don't like them. But she has the same drives, because everyone does, myself included. We all have the same drives towards bigotry. It's not about these weird conspiracies, it's about new things coming in that people are ignorant of, and so they don't like them. Things like trans, which is a strange thing and needs a bit of explaining usually to really make sense. But instead we have to talk about how like, oh, well, you all decided that we're bad and all that shit. Like, where is that getting us? You know what I mean? Like, do you sincerely think that you're not capable of bigotry, that you're not capable of hatred? Because I promise you that you are.
Being trans isn't a problem, you know, you have to make it a problem.
Jeopardizing freedom of expression. The IEA, of course, has no corporate view on this, or for that matter, any other issue, and we acknowledge that there are a diversity of views among proponents of a free and liberal society on these matters.
Also, I apologize. I didn't realize this was going to be Reacception. I thought this was going to be like a ContraPoints / philosophy points style video. I don't know.
Tonight's debate will progress as follows. Each member of the panel will be given 5 minutes to set out their opening remarks.
I was just going to say I've already downed half a bottle of red wine at this point.
Their best cases. I will be
and I look terrible, by the way.
At 4 minutes.
We didn't even have time to do any makeup.
Your time's coming to an end. I'll be bringing it twice at 5 minutes to let you know your time is completed. That will be followed by a discussion that I'll moderate, followed by open Q&A with the audience. So please do think of your questions. Now time to introduce our first speaker of the evening, who is Mark Glendenning.
Mark wrote the gender ideology pamphlet.
And the author of the recent IEA report titled Trans Ideology, a New Threat to Liberal Values, which inspired this debate.
There's no threat to liberal values. There's no threat.
Mark, your time begins now.
Thank you. Well, my hope is that
there's no threat to liberal values. Is there not? Is it not a bit illiberal to try and tell people how they should address people? Is it not a bit illiberal to try and shun people that have different opinions to you? Is it not a bit illiberal to show up to conversations with the aim of disrupting them because you only want certain conversations to be had?
discussions.
I'm not going to pause it, by the way. I'm just going to comment as we go, so I hope that's okay.
The philosophical roots of this debate.
I'm all for the philosophical roots.
I want to explain from a liberal perspective why I see transgender ideology as a threat to freedom and equality. Equally, I'm keen to better understand what are the underlying philosophical principles Freda and Peter are starting from.
They're not necessarily philosophical principles.
Understood them. We're probably going to leave here tonight with a variety of different views on the specific issues
you certainly are.
from this broader question. But I hope that at least we will leave with a better understanding of where the other side.
So Mark's coming at this from a kind of like somebody's controlling the way he thinks kind of thing.
Freedom at play in this context, and these go very much to the heart of the politics culture that is now moving centre stage in our society.
Culture wars.
The classical liberal or libertarian approach,
which is
to this, is that
and Mark,
and to other issues, starts from the premise that we should own our own minds and our own bodies.
That's true.
These are the primary forms of private property.
Yes.
So relating that broad
Alan doesn't believe in that.
starting point to this debate, trans people must of course have the absolute right to identify.
Is this just her being like, well, I'm sober now, so let me do the debate properly, and also slag off Helen Joyce every opportunity I get?
Yeah,
themselves as they
Helen's wrote 13 chapters of why that can't be so.
But equally, those of us who are transgender skeptics must have the equal right to our beliefs and our thoughts on this matter. By contrast, for me at least, transgender ideology is the attempt to politicise transgenderism.
Well, they politicised it already, haven't they? We have not politicised it.
How many times have I seen like a trans person talk about trans being political? To me, I agree it is politicized, but I think it is us. I mean, there's definitely people who have for their own gains because, you know, like homophobia is a way of getting elected if you're pandering to certain kinds of people. So from that perspective, I agree. But to act like it's not been politicized on our side, like that's mental. That's mental, and most other trans people who agree with you on a lot of stuff would disagree with you on that.
I've not politicized it.
So it's part of the new left's drive to extend state regulation.
Wait, how can she say she hasn't politicized it? She shows up to these fucking debates making very broad political points like constantly. You're at least part of the politicization of this, are you not?
Over civil society and in terms to extend state regulation
over
civil society and in terms of how we communicate with each other.
I'm guessing the new left is like progressives.
It demands that we fall into line with what I contend is a sleight of hand postmodernist magical trick or magic.
When my mum calls me her daughter, she doesn't understand any postmodern magical tricks.
This involves taking a scientific
Does she have to?
concept, namely that of human female or human male, based upon the empirical identification of objective qualities that exist in time and space, and then fusing them with a trans person's sense of gender identity.
The sense of gender identity comes from the culture. It isn't coming from the trans person. We navigate those paradigms.
Hybrid entity.
So we're saying that gender identity, wait, it comes from the culture, so it's not something we come up with ourselves.
Gender identity comes from the culture. It isn't coming from the trans person. We navigate those paradigms.
I have a feeling that a lot of people would disagree with her on that as well, because it kind of seems like gender identity is just whatever you make it. I don't know where my I don't think I have a gender identity personally. I don't see where the culture really comes into it, because it was like these feelings of like, I want to be female. That's not a cultural thing, that's like sex, you know.
Hybrid entity, namely the trans woman or trans man, which it is argued should be awarded parity in terms of identity with that of the original scientific concept.
There's no original scientific concept.
And this
we only have the scientific.
The original scientific argued should be awarded parity in terms of identity with that of the original scientific concept.
There's no original scientific concept.
Well, people keep taking my spot, so I have to move my camera. It's really annoying. I wish you'd go on that side. It's rude. I should have priority for the bottom right corner, I think, at all times. And people should respect my need to be on that side of the screen, because my OCD is going crazy. It doesn't look like I'm looking the other way. It looks silly. Whatever.
And
we only have the scientific. We only have the scientists. Science we understand from the 20th century.
I don't even know what she's like fucking talking about with half of this. I don't know what she's getting at with half. I feel like I need to like listen to everything like 3 times, because to be fair, this guy isn't the most engaging person ever. I think I agree with him, but
in terms of identity with that of the original scientific concept.
There's no original scientific concept.
And this
isn't there a scientific concept to everything? I didn't know what she's trying to get at. There seems to be this kind of, you know, this is all extremely decentralized, and it's just we're just people, and I don't know, it's cringe. No one wants this shit.
We only have the scientific. We only have the scientists. Science we understand from the 20th century.
One type of physical object cannot simultaneously be another type.
Human beings are not objects, Mark.
See, this is the thing. This is how she wants to argue, where every time someone says something, she can just cut in with like this. No, it's not like that. No, and that's exactly how she argues when you see her in any of these like debate type things. It's exactly what she's like. She wants to cut in constantly, but no one ever seems to cut her off, interestingly. But here she's got the freedom to do it, so she's just going to constantly cut in time after time. Sometimes I don't even know what she's trying to say, honestly.
This idea is then fused with the postmodernist idea that
you don't have to be a postmodernist to accept people.
Reality is.
See, you don't have to be. Yeah, so she's in the room, but she is not. She's reacting to it after the fact, so you'll see her soon, and if she's being honest, she'll show off some of the pretty stupid shit she got up to, because there was a lot of it. Anyway, sorry, she said something that bothered me.
Simultaneously be another type.
Human beings are not objects, Mark.
This idea is then fused with the postmodernist.
Yeah, he never said they were objects.
Modernist idea that
you don't have to be a postmodernist to accept people.
He never said that you need to be a postmodernist to accept people or to believe in trans people. Like, what am I supposed to say to this shit? She's just like, no, that's wrong. No, that's wrong. But like, for shit that he didn't even say. It's like watching Twitter, but like as a person, where you say something and it's like, well, you know, I like salmon. Oh, so you hate cod? That's not what I said. I said, I like salmon. Oh, so you hate haddock too? You hate all the fish? You know, that kind of shit.
Is constructed socially,
well, I do enjoy
by ideology, and that language is therefore either a force to maintain, reinforce the cultural status quo, or it is something that can be used to overturn that status quo. Now, if you believe that language,
yeah, I don't know what it is. Like, no offense to this guy. I find it a bit hard to follow.
Which has that kind of power.
Language does have that kind of power.
You cannot adopt a live and let live approach. You have to see language.
Yeah, she's just contradicting everything. This is going to drive me insane. I know people like this who just... It doesn't matter what you say, they're just going to contradict everything you say. Like, no, that's not what it's like. It just really irritates me. Like, because again, that's not arguing. That's just reflectively saying the opposite of the last thing the person just said. This doesn't take brain power, you know? I've seen nothing to indicate that this person is intelligent, and no amount of reading books makes you intelligent. You might have more knowledge about whatever it is the book's about, but I don't know how you're reading that book. I don't know what you're taking from it. I don't know what your understanding of what you saw is. And this person can say that someone like Helen Joyce doesn't have any expertise, but she seems to have a lot more intelligence on her side, and I think that probably in this case counts for a lot more, especially when this person's not here to debate anyway.
Used to overturn that status quo. Now, if you believe that language has that kind of power,
language does have that kind of power.
You cannot adopt a live and let live approach. You have to see language as a sort of zero-sum political
No, language
game,
is a creative
that is
tool.
Not compatible with democracy.
Language is a creative tool. That's in terms of like writing songs and writing poems, yeah. I don't know about in terms of talking about facts. I don't think you'd use language as a creative tool when you're talking about like factual shit. But then, hey, she's not here to talk about factual shit anyway, so hey.
Democracy. The last point...
Art isn't compatible with democracy.
In a democracy. There have to be hard conceptual boundaries.
What is the conceptual boundary of being gay or lesbian?
What all of us are saying and what words actually mean. If a politician...
I think a boundary of being gay or lesbian might be not fucking someone in public. I don't know. It's easy to sit and just ask smug questions one after the other. Maybe I should just start doing that to her as well.
Tells us that he or she believes that there should, for example, be only women-only wards in hospital. We have to know what that candidate for office or that politician means by the word woman.
It means they don't exclude trans.
That transgenderism is completely different from transgender ideology, and I support the former, but I oppose the latter.
Is she going to deny that there's a transgender ideology? I'm not sure. Most of them do, because it's kind of not the easiest thing to just answer like that, and I don't really have my own answer for it down yet, so let's see though.
But it's not trans people that are enforcing that, is it? No.
Wait.
Tells us that he or she believes that there should, for example, be only women-only wards in hospital. We have to know what that candidate for office or that politician means by the word woman.
It means they don't exclude trans.
That transgenderism is completely different from transgender ideology, and I support the former, but I oppose the latter.
But it's not trans people that are enforcing that, is it? No.
It's not trans people that push... Yeah, I know, I have that problem a lot. It's not trans people that push transgender ideology. This person has a Twitter account. They've referenced Twitter in numerous conversations that I've seen them on. They know what goes on there. She has to be being dishonest here. I can't square that any other way. This is either like weird smoke and mirrors shit, or she's just straight up lying, because it would sound bad to do otherwise. But I don't know. To me, it's painfully obvious that trans people do push an ideology, and it's not just trans people that do it, because the ideology is actually quite broad-ranging. I mean, if you listen to like fat acceptance movement people, they use all the same tactics, all the same language, even like fucking hardcore gender criticals and stuff to an extent use some similar tactics, especially when they're actually quite ignorant, you know? Because it's easier to just throw in a bunch of debate tactics and never actually engage with any points. Or to just put on a performance instead of making any actual points and trying to further the conversation, potentially in a more unexpected way. Because people like Helen Joyce, like at these kind of things, they more or less end up talking to themselves. And is that what you want? Is that what you... you know... I'm trying to be understanding and understand what this person is going for, but I don't know.
No.
Remarks, Mark.
For the people in that room, there's no distinction between transgender ideology and transgenderism.
That's a huge assumption. And I mean, that man has just said the opposite.
Just something that Mark has built around this idea that he believes that people should be able to say what they want and not be prosecuted for it, but that isn't happening anyway. The people in the room just are fully on board with the idea of transgender ideology anyway, or transgenderism. It doesn't matter what they call it. They just don't agree with the idea of somebody being trans. That's it.
Well, why not try and explain it to them in a way that makes sense? See if you can get a few of them on your side.
They've wrapped a bunch of arguments around that.
This person apparently knows what's in all of these people's heads because she knows what organization they're with or some shit, which what organization someone is in, yeah, it can certainly inform you, but you know, to just write everyone off as something like that and be like, well, it's pointless, I'm gonna do this pretentious fucking performance garbage instead. You know, I have a strong feeling, I could be wrong, but I have a feeling she's not gonna actually show any of the egregious stuff, because like, for about a good half an hour of this video, and I have one on my channel, it's super long, I didn't edit it properly, and it's probably quite rambly, but I covered this actual debate that she keeps referring back to. Like, for a good half an hour, she's quite quiet, and then it gets kind of more and more, and then she's talking about her penis and some poem she wrote about being a lesbian sperm producer and stuff, like using those words, you know, the kind of, you know, anyone can be vulgar in front of people. Like, vulgar comedy is like, it's good for like shock value, but is anyone really being shocked by this person? I personally was not particularly.
So the starting point is trans people are the problem, and we have the answer to it. That is it.
Now we have.
Oh, you saw that? Yeah, that's fair enough.
Our first speaker.
Oh, it's my turn.
Who is Freda Wallace,
No.
who is a Manchester-based
I don't fully agree with myself here, I must admit. I made the mistake of going in too philosophically at first.
She went in too philosophically at first. Let's see if we agree with that.
Experience in the UK.
Well, first of all, I want to say transgender ideology is a conspiracy theory.
That's true. Well done.
It's not a conspiracy theory, and she's lying. Like, how is that true? Why is it that so many trans people have very similar ideologies? Why is it that so much of trans rights activism brings in like far leftist ideology, intersectional feminism, like radical like sexual freedom, polyamory, all that kind of stuff? You know, why do we tie so many of these things together that don't intrinsically have anything to do with being trans? And when everyone seems to be doing it, is there not like a shared ideology at that point? Are there not goals that we want, such as like self-ID, such as, you know, various leftist goals? I could say all kinds of things. Like, she's just lying, and she didn't really deny it earlier, but now she is. It feels so much like she just kind of reacts to the last thing that people say without building up any kind of overall concept of what's going on and building towards anything. Because she wasn't saying this earlier, like, that Mark guy said something about transgender ideology. She didn't say it was a conspiracy then. But hey.
It allows you to isolate
I look terrible.
society as a problem. Now, me being trans
Why have I not got
is
my
not the
pony
cause
in?
or effect of anything. There may be people in society who transgress.
Look at the state of you fat bitch.
They might say it's
She's talking over herself. I can't even hear what she's saying. So she can't hear what she's saying. How does she know what she's saying that she's saying makes any sense? I don't know.
she's a trans prisoner, or you see this in the media all the time, you get the word trans linked to things. But the trans element is...
And then just, oh, it got back to this, but yeah, I agree with that, yeah. I don't know. There's a lot of conversations about trans people because it's divisive and it sells. You just have to get used to that. You can whine about conspiracy theories, or you can represent your community, which you've chosen to do so terribly, so...
not cause or effect of anything. Like, when I was talking before, there's a famous trans woman called Sophie Wilson, who is famous for designing a chip that is in every single mobile phone. And every single
I mentioned this because I'm talking about the relevance of transness.
Her being trans is...
What's the relevance of transness? Because a trans person invented something. If they weren't trans, would they still have invented that? Maybe, who knows? That's not... Is it a trans thing because it was made by a trans person? I don't know. It seems more like a collective humanity thing to me, but hey.
It's not the cause or effect of that. She would have had that idea, whether she would be male or female. So you can't pick and choose when you decide...
Wait. So she would have had that idea whether she was male or female. So she's removing that from being trans, but she just said she was talking about transness. Hold up.
Not the cause or effect of that.
I mentioned this because I'm talking about the relevance of transness.
The relevance of transness. When saying, well, her being trans had nothing to do with it.
Trans is not the cause or effect of that. She would have...
Yeah. Ah, God. I'm really trying to understand what she's saying. You have to understand this. I'm really, really trying to, like, actually listen and not just be like, oh, you're dumb, like, 24 times. Because that doesn't... You know, I'm no better than her by my own standard if I do that. But, like, she just contradicts herself constantly. She does it in the debate where she sexualizes herself and then later complains about, like, about trans people being sexualized. It's... What am I supposed to do? What am I supposed to say? When someone's this, like, cocksure and this, like, you know, her beliefs are that like set in. Like she came to one of my videos telling me, oh, come back when you've had conversations in like hostile spaces, as if, you know, I didn't work as a phone agent, as if I didn't work at a fucking Weatherspoon, you know. It's not like I haven't had any experiences like that. And besides, what she does at these things is the easiest thing in the world because she's just going off on her own thing. Like, you don't have to listen, you don't have to debate. It's easy. This is trying to do things on easy mode because you want to be fucking famous or whatever, I don't know.
Have had that idea, whether she would be male or female. So you can't pick and choose when you decide that trans is the cause or effect of things. Now, to be here in this space with Helen and people I know are very much against me identifying as trans or identifying as a woman, but
when it matters, hold up.
Pick and choose. Her being trans is not the cause or effect of that. She would have had that idea, whether she would be male or female. So you can't pick and choose when you decide that trans is the cause or effect of things.
What's she getting at? That's a really like vague point. I don't know if she's getting at something like, you know, well, shit. I'm trying to come up with an example, but this makes so little sense to me that I don't even know how to. Oh my god, I have a thing where I do genuinely really want to be able to like steel man other people's positions. Because someone like this, I have a feeling if you asked her to steel man Helen Joyce's positions, I don't know that she'd be able to. I could be wrong on that, but I don't personally think she'd be able to. For me, I think it's important to be able to, because you need to understand other people's arguments in order to debate them. Otherwise, the only way you can do it is to write it all off as a conspiracy theory and pretty much handwave all of it, which is what she does. So that's my thinking on that. But I'm not even sure how to make this make sense, you know? Like, what's this got to do with the conversation?
Now, to be here in this space with Helen and people I know are very much against me identifying as trans or identifying as a woman, but...
Which is not what they're against. I mean, identifying as a woman, maybe. I mean, I think they're more about, like, you can identify as a woman, but don't expect me to accept that identification. I think that's more of it. And that's more where the problems come in, because it's like, these people want you to accept them as their identity or whatever it is, you know?
I don't go into the world and say, I am a woman. I don't turn up in the chip shop or go down the pub
use
and
the
go,
chip
I'm a
shop.
woman.
This isn't true.
I don't go to the chip shop very much.
Could have fooled me. No, she's lying. This is not true. Look at the way she's dressed. Look at her hair. Look at everything. This is practically screaming, I am a woman. And you could say the same about me. I'm wearing like makeup and shit. I have long hair and all that shit. I have, you know, I'm not like coded trying to look like a man. Do you know what I'm saying? So in a sense, yeah, you are kind of being like, hey, I'm a woman, because you want people to see you as that. That's why you dress a certain way. So I don't agree with this either. You might not be going around saying that. But she seems to be just like, well, I don't physically say, oh, hey, everyone, I'm a woman. Therefore, yeah, that's a good point for you. Yeah, well,
although I look like I do.
Invent those things. They already exist as a language in society.
Okay, self-awareness, finally. Thank you. Maybe there's hope. Maybe from here on out, Freda Wallace is actually based as fuck. I'm pretty sure she's not. I'm sure I've seen things from since this date, but hey.
Well, that's my for-starters phone ringing.
So, is that for me? So the reason I'm
oh, I thought I recognised Maya Forstater at the front. That is her. Okay, fair enough.
All our language is gendered. When we talk about our personal experiences, we talk about mother, sister, auntie, niece, nephew, brother. They're all gendered words, and you don't have to have given birth.
Wait.
The reason I'm all our language is gendered. When we talk about
all our language is gendered. I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. Like, especially in the English language. Like, if you were Spanish, then yeah. But I don't know. What's interesting, if you look up non-binary in Spanish, it has two different versions for like male and female. I love it. Anyway.
About our personal experiences, we talk about mother, sister, auntie, niece, nephew, brother. They're all gendered words. And you don't have to have given birth to be a mother to somebody. You don't have to be a blood relative to be a sister to somebody.
We're talking about semantics and philosophical language.
It doesn't belong to anybody, it belongs to the culture. So when you hear trans activists...
I mean, yeah, language is socially constructed. It's not a mind-blowing point, I'll be honest.
Say trans women are women, trans men are men. They're not talking about your flesh-based reality. It's a protest that says...
It's a protest. Fuck, I keep forgetting about bits, and then they come in, and I'm like, Jesus Christ.
The word woman means more than the sum of our parts. To me, it's about, a thinking about the world beyond yourself.
Yeah.
So when Aretha Franklin sings,
God, I get this feeling inside me that starts building when someone is talking but not really arriving at much of a conclusion, i.e., well, being a woman, it means the sum of more of our parts. It means, our place beyond the world, like, what does any of this mean? Like, Jesus Christ.
what's the song?
Not doing too badly here.
Woman. She's not singing about a uterus.
Not doing too badly? Are you serious? Jesus fuck.
She's singing about how it feels to be in love with somebody, or how it feels to have sex with somebody. That's what she's singing about. So that's why the word woman, that's why trans women are women, because they're accepted in society as such.
And trans people don't.
Trans people are women because they're accepted in society as such. Potentially. We're not always, though, so are we only women to some people? Excuse me.
Define that.
It's because that's an idea that belongs to a cultural idea. So, what's the song?
Not doing too badly here.
Woman. She's not singing about a uterus. She's singing about how it feels to be in love with somebody, or how it feels to have sex with somebody. That's what she's singing about. So that's what.
She also made a huge mistake saying she's not talking about a uterus, because now people are going to be like, you're kind of reducing women down to like a uterus, which I don't think that's really a fair argument against her. And even if it is, there's better arguments you could make. But I'm pretty sure someone brings that up.
The word woman. That's why trans women are women, because they're accepted in society as such.
And trans people don't define that.
It's because that's an idea that belongs to a
Trans people don't define. Oh my god.
somebody, or how it feels to have sex with somebody. That's what she's singing about. So that's why the word woman. That's why trans women are women, because they're accepted in society as such.
And trans people don't define that.
It's because that's an idea that belongs to a cultural idea. So
I'm not sure what she means there.
women like Caroline Noakes, and who I've spoken to, and Penny Morden, who I've spoken to.
Well, I've emailed.
Devon, Ashley Carr.
Emailed. That's a bit different. You kind of subtly push your credentials. I mean, hey, I was going to be like, you met Penny Morden? That's amazing. She used to be my partner's MP. She actually wrote to her. So, hey, technically, my partner has also spoken to Penny Morden in the same capacity that Freda Wallace has. Great.
I realise that when they're criticised, I've heard them criticising the same way I am, because they'll dehumanise them.
Misogyny.
And almost try to make them, like, misgender them almost. I've seen Caroline Noakes misgender.
Let's see an example. There's not going to be one. She's at home right now. She could easily like provide examples. Like, here's an example of what I meant, because she's like somewhere else here. I mean, the rest of them have papers on them and stuff, and she doesn't seem to be using any. She probably could have brought shit with her if she wanted to, but she's talking about misogyny in these like, what's an example? I don't really know what you're talking about.
And called them Caroline Blokes, because that's the way they can attack them. So
that's not a misgendering, by the way.
It's almost as if it's just misogyny, and that's what it is. Because how sex matters is a misogynistic movement.
So yeah, it's all about boiling it down to something simple that requires no further thought because you've neatly wrapped it up in a bow. It's just about misogyny. It's just these people are just misogynists because they called someone Caroline Blokes. Okay, great. How many things have like trans people called other women because some of them are rad fans? I guess we're also misogynist too, huh?
Because
I have to comment on that because they laugh there, but they know. They laugh. There are no prizes for women.
Because once sex matters get
and they know.
They're not laughing because they know. They're laughing because you called a pro-woman organization misogynist. And do you know what's weird? She's calling this like a performance and stuff. I'd have thought something like that. She'd be like, yeah, that's like the performance. Like, but it's like she's now defending it as if that's an actual point. She seems to believe what she's saying. So is it a performance? Are you actually trying to debate and you just fucking sucked at it? So this is why you're now coping over it. You know what I'm saying?
No, that's true.
They will not care about women in sports, and they will not care about single-sex spaces.
And that's the other bit that irritates the fuck out of me. This, if you care about this issue, you don't actually care about that. You're just doing this broader misogyny. It's this broader picture, this broader anti-trans agenda, which is bullshit. Because plenty of these people actually, they care about these specific issues because these specific issues are the ones causing the problems. How do you know that if these people got their way, they wouldn't stop there? How do you know it's a slippery slope? How do you know if they got what they wanted, that actually, in other ways where women's rights and trans rights don't clash too much, they would just leave it alone? How do you know for sure that that's not the case? How do we know for sure that the kind of trans rights that you're for, that you say you're for, are the end of it? How do we know that what you want isn't actually more than that. It's speculation. Anyone can make up each other's positions. And it's just propaganda.
Arguments that allow them to validate their prejudice. And that's it.
So the thing I'm rambling through there is this idea that every attack online, every...
We're talking about attacks online as if trans people don't give as good as they get, if not worse sometimes. As if this whole trans people versus TERFs thing at this point isn't a completely self-perpetuating fucking slap fight. You know, I can't log in Twitter anytime without seeing some fucking trans person or some fucking ally atting JK Rowling, you know, either making some smarmy point about something she said or else just fucking outright calling her a bitch or something, you know? And we want to act like we're the victims. This person wants to act like she's the victim, the kind of shit that she does and the way she acts. It's really, really embarrassing. And God, I have a feeling she's only going to cover like the first things of it. Like, because this is a 1 hour video and I'm sure the debate was like 1 hour. I mean, what is this? I don't even know what this is. Anyway, let's keep going.
Every thought that Sex Matters, LGBT Alliance, anyone around Helen Joyce, anybody that attacks me, they don't do it. They don't understand trans. They don't want to understand what that is. They just...
If they don't understand, why aren't you helping educate anyone?
Identified something they don't like, and they will use then Helen Joyce's arguments to attack me because they think it legitimizes their arguments.
The thing people have to remember is, first off, this happens both ways, and in all ways. You know, if you're a Democrat and you talk about being a Democrat a lot and you have a decent platform, you're probably going to get pro-Republicans who are very angry towards the Democrats, who will give you a lot of shit for it, and will say all kinds of ridiculous stuff and just recycle other people's talking points. Like, she's not wrong, but to act like this is a unique problem from these kind of groups towards trans people, when people can only be so responsible anyway for the kind of followings that they have to start with, it's just ridiculous, because trans people do the exact same fucking shit.
Rather than think about what it is they're actually attacking. So you become and the more you push back and argue with them, it just confirms their hatred. It's like, oh, that's a mad TRA or whatever. So it's kind of, I'm describing what he's actually attacking us is misogyny, and that is it. It's not necessarily to do with being trans, or that's the way that Helen...
If someone's having a go at a trans woman, but they don't believe they're a trans woman, they just think they're a man, how can they have, like, misogynist intentions? Because to them, they're just attacking a man. I don't understand this point.
Joyce and her friends, they've codified it. What it actually is misogyny in the culture. And that's why I mentioned Caroline Noakes and Hashra Carr and Natasha Devon, Penny Mordaunt, because I've seen those women attacked in exactly the same way.
Isn't that just the kind of shit that everyone gets whenever they are in a position where their voice is heard by a lot of people? I don't understand how there's this unique thing going on that's just towards trans people from transphobes, you know?
Well, under time there, I'm very impressed.
Yes, so what I'm saying basically is that Sex Matters is upholded by this kind of misogynistic culture. That's why...
Like, what's the point? Couldn't you have just said that on Twitter? Like, you'd probably do anyway. She has me blocked because she's a loser, but... Jesus Christ, man, it's dire. This is what I mean, like, this is kind of the state of trans rights activism. I've watched one person so far that I still disagree with on almost everything, but I at least think is professional and argues quite well. But a lot of them seem to be like Freda here. Like, she's probably the worst one I've seen yet, but... Like, Jesus Christ. This is just not how you do it. And, like, you know, she'll talk about how, like, you argue back and it just makes them hate you more. Do you think that that's the way you should deal with these kind of people, therefore? IRL? Like, in an actual setting where there has to be kind of rules for the way that you engage? It's insane. It's like she's trying to take that energy, and she implied this by saying, hey, I did a Twitter space being like the witch trials of me, and then I did the same thing here. You can't take like the Twitter culture and try and apply that to like real life. It doesn't work that way. People in real life don't act like people in Twitter. Twitter is like extremely unrepresentative. Like, most of the people on there are going to be from Western countries. And like, I don't know, it's something like there's a small amount of people on Twitter that have accounts are actually responsible for all of the content on there. It's not very representative. So why you would apply your knowledge of that culture and then bring it into the real world. It seems insane to me.
Jordan Peterson backs them.
Helen is the director
And,
of
you know,
Advocacy at Sex Matters.
Guilt by association.
they'll excuse the words of Andrew Tate.
Guilt by association.
The author of the book Trans When Ideology.
She attacks me now, but she doesn't really, because so I don't.
She attacks me now. She's so fucking pathetic. Like, she can sit there and call fucking Let Woman Speak or whatever it's called a misogynist movement. Is that not attacking them? Oh no, well it's true when I say it. There's fucking 6-year-olds is what these people are, I swear.
Disagree with their attack.
Thank you. Well, I'm the only person here whose voice hasn't been deepened by testosterone.
My voice isn't very deep.
I've just had to get over a
It's been deepened by testosterone though. Here's the thing, my voice has also been deepened by testosterone. That really hurt, I can tell. I can tell she's a bit hurt by that one.
quite severe throat infection, so I can the moderator, but I'm not willing to be talked over or shouted down by any of the men that handles me.
So she's the little woman now. She's playing the...
Well, she knows what you're like, maybe. Come on. Like, she must have seen, like, Freda in some of these panels and know how much she tries to talk over people. And it becomes very apparent during the course of this debate. And what's funny is, like, the audience is, like, way rowdier than they should be. And, like, shout out sometimes. She's the one telling them, like, to not interrupt, like, Freda and, like, Peter Tatchell and stuff. So it kind of seems like she's the one with the principles, if anything.
Person on this panel, when we think about what trans ideology does, which is to pretend that the two sexes are mixed sex groups, it's actually women...
You can hear me pouring wine there.
So when women overstep boundaries and step
Cool.
into men's spaces, they do not put men at risk.
No, because, but it's a social delineation, it's not a risk.
But when men overstep women's boundaries...
Oh yeah, it's like she plays the little woman. This person plays the victim constantly, so I don't know why she would even bring that up.
On this panel, when we think about what trans ideology does, which is to pretend that the two sexes are mixed sex groups, it's actually women who...
You can hear me pouring...
Do you think she, like, talks over things with, like, complete irrelevant shits? Like, you can hear me pouring wine, so you can't really hear what she's saying properly, and it makes her nonsense make a bit more sense? Maybe that's it? I don't know. I'm really trying to listen carefully, because I don't like misrepresenting people. Even though these people will never give me the same courtesy and will misrepresent me till the fucking cows come home. And still, it's just like everything... Oh my god, I'm just going to keep going. This is just going to drive me insane.
Wine there.
And I can't hear what she's saying because she's fucking talking over her.
So when women overstep boundaries and step into men's spaces, they do not put men at risk.
No, because... But it's a social delineation, it's not a risk.
So she's arguing back. The logic behind what Helen Joyce is saying is that in terms of like sex offenders, violent offenders, they're overwhelmingly men. So putting a man into a woman's space is more of a risk than putting a woman into a man's space. And the obvious counter, I don't know what the fuck Freda just said then, that makes no sense and has nothing to do with anything. The counter would be like, you know, they're not men, they're trans women. But she's not making that counter, so hey.
But when men overstep women's boundaries and come into...
Being male is not the driver of abuse, it's misogyny.
Being male is not the driver of abuse, it's misogyny. I don't know. I think probably having things like testosterone in your body does in fact make it a little more likely that you're going to do something. And misogyny, I don't know. How are you measuring that? Like, we'd have to get so much more into that, I think, to really flesh that one out.
That's the driver of abuse.
Otherwise mental, talking about what women...
She's very sure of that, by the way. She's read a lot of books and stuff like that. I don't know. I don't know if I agree with her, but I'd have to think about that so much more.
...need and what female people need in order to be fully able to move around in society.
In Helen's mind, it's men that are the problem, but she will never say men are a problem.
She does, in this debate, say that men are the problem. She literally talks about, like, how many male violent offenders there are versus how many female violent offenders there are. Like, really? Are you seriously? Like, she is quite clearly saying that men are the problem. Very much so. And it's the fact that you used to be a man, and that's what you came from, and, like, in terms of your physical sex, that's where you still are. Like, that's literally what she's saying. You're trying to make it, oh, well, she's actually just making it about trans people. That's not really true, because you and her have a different definition of what a trans person is. She would have a different description to you of who you are. She would have a different description to you or me who I am. And yet we're just saying the first thing that comes to our heads, I guess. I don't know.
She has to concentrate on trans.
But she isn't doing... Oh my God, whatever, it's fine.
Fellow panelists. So when I agreed to do this talk, I had already been here for the IEA.
I told Mark not to tell Helen I was going to do this.
I hadn't actually realised it was a panel when I said yes. We can read the email properly.
Why would... Is it cool for someone to spring someone like that on you? I think everyone should be warned when fucking Freda Wallace is on the panel, because you're going to get a bunch of bullshit.
Maybe you should read your fucking emails properly.
And I said, oh, crying out loud. This is a person who has stolen my book.
I copied your book and I added my notes. I did my notes. I made them freely available with my criticisms, which you can still...
Is it something you're supposed to pay for that you didn't pay for, and then re-upload it? Then you kind of did steal it a little bit.
We'll have.
And Abigail Schreier, and has put these books online on a Dropbox.
I mean, copying something is still stealing, if you think about, like, copyright, you know, the way that fucking works and stuff.
And has then posted on both Substack and Medium, encouraging people to steal our work.
No, I am encouraging people to read my criticism of your work.
Infringement notifications to both platforms to get them to take...
Well, that didn't work, because I can still... If you want the books, I can send them to you right now.
Wait.
Infringement notifications to both platforms to get them to take...
Well, that didn't work, because I can still... If you want the books, I can send them to you right now. With my notes.
So you kind of did in a way then. Maybe. I understand it could be seen as a transformative work, maybe. But yeah, I don't know. I guess I'm somewhere in the middle there. I don't give that much of a shit about this. These kind of people usually are very pro stealing. Most of the trans people I used to know were like pro shoplifting and stuff like that, which used to trigger the absolute fuck out of me, and would do even more so now because my partner works in retail. And shoplifting, if you're a retail worker, is a fucking blight.
About Freda is that Freda writes a lot of articles with titles like The Turf Reich.
That's the name of my blog,
Over
Helen.
the weekend, you wrote a piece about me which said
But yeah, but it's like, you're calling it the Turf Reich. Like, come on. Can you not see what she's getting at?
that Helen Joyce did all the things she got wrong. So you might, if you're going to title a piece like this, you might care to do a bit of fact-checking. So
well, I did the fact-checking, and I knew where you'd been, Helen. You'd been to Gripped Media, Free Speech Island, which is a far-right organisation.
Guilt by association.
Somebody like Freda Wallace on this panel is because the people who should be here are not here. The people who should be here are the organisations that are pushing...
They shouldn't be here. They're human rights organisations.
Yeah, but shouldn't someone be, like, speaking up for them?
They don't come to the table with you because you're ideological. They're just human rights organisations.
Human rights organisations can have ideology. Like, what is she talking about?
They go and they talk to politicians and they try to destroy our rights and they won't come.
Your rights? Nobody's destroying your rights, Helen.
So I've left myself very little time to actually say why I think that trans ideology is a threat to liberal values. But I don't think I need very much time to say that.
Because you haven't thought about it.
The idea of gender self-ID is a misnomer. It's not yourself that you're identifying, you're forcing other people.
Yeah, you haven't thought about it. You disagree with me, so you must have never thought about it. You must have done no research. How many times do I fucking hear this? Like, the amount of times that someone disagrees with me, so it's like, oh, Google is free. It's like, yeah, I did Google it. That's one of the things I did. You're assuming I did no research because you disagree with me. And in your mind, anyone that doesn't come to your conclusion about things is wrong, so...
Nobody's forced to tell me I'm a woman, or nobody's forced to respect my pronouns. Nobody's forced to call me Freda. Nobody's forced to call me Miss. Nobody's forced to call you Mrs. just because you're married.
In particular in religions.
She's going to say there's no comparison with religions. She wasn't listening to a word she said leading up to that because she was talking over her.
There's no comparison with religion because religions exist the world over, and so do different gender identities within those religions.
What? That doesn't make any sense. It is very comparable to a religion because self-ID is something that's kind of non-falsifiable. You can't really say it exists. Sorry, gender identity, not self-ID. You can't really say it exists. You can't really say it doesn't exist. It kind of just seems like something that some people made up, which, in my mind, you shouldn't really be able to have human rights around. I guess religions, the kind of classic ones, they've been around a long time, so we do that. Yeah, I don't know. She didn't even listen to what she was saying and is like, no, it's not like a religion. I personally think it's a good comparison. It is kind of like a new version of a religion. But most people are just worshipping themselves.
People with religions. Although there are religious practices that do celebrate gender.
There are two sexes. We are mammals. We're born.
Such as?
We die. We evolved. These are things that are material.
We're also creative, artistic, and philosophical beings. We're more than just monkeys with car keys, Helen.
Anyway, what I'd
That's not what... Oh my god.
to see is this movement reclassified.
I'm going to stop... I need to stop saying that's not what they said. That's not what they said, because But then maybe I need to hammer this shit home. Maybe I need to hammer it home the way these people operate, because they're so similar. So many of these people, they will sum something up in a way that doesn't really represent what the person originally said, but makes it worse anyway. It's like, it's fucked. I don't understand. Like, it feels so dishonest, like, listening to these people, man.
Itself as something like a modern day, postmodern neo-religion, in which people assert counterfactual beliefs.
That'd work if there was a book.
We don't need a book, first of all. Second off, you're talking over her again when she's trying to explain, so how are you going to understand her point?
That told people how to be trans.
Or a woman is a man because
Well, you've wrote the book.
There doesn't have to be a book. Like, maybe that's where she's kind of coming up with the postmodern neo-religion or whatever. Because there isn't one, because it does function differently to religions, but there are comparisons. But apparently there's no comparisons based on nothing. And she doesn't justify what she says, it's just, no, that's not right, no. Okay. Kind of seems like a lot of these people worship themselves, and that's the real religion, but hey.
Called trans.
And they get on with it. People believe in all sorts. They believe in homeopathy, astrology, life after death, reincarnation.
Listen, me being trans is not something I have to believe.
I don't believe any of those things. I just don't want to bother.
What? It is literally something you believe. Oh my god, this is going to kill me. This is actually going to kill me.
About it.
Well, you've decided to bother us about it. You spent the last 6 years bothering us about it, Helen.
Pretend that being female is just having a uterus.
I didn't. Nobody said
Stop
that.
bothering me. Because over here,
Well, shut up and fuck off. Simple as that, Helen. Nobody's going to bother you.
there's a tautology to say.
Go back to your nice middle-class life and don't harass trans people. Or get your followers to harass trans people. It's very simple.
These spaces do matter for women.
But trans people can harass her. Your followers can harass her, I'm guessing. I'm sure that's fine, right? Because it's defensive or punching up, which punching up is a stupid concept because it suggests that anyone who can punch up infinitely, and anyone who'd be punching down can never respond. And I haven't seen her, like, Twitter behavior because she has me blocked. I don't think I've ever really seen any of it. But I would guess that she gives as good as she gets. It's a bit like Sophie Molly. I have a video on her. Exactly the kind of person who will go after, like, JKR and, like, Glinner and stuff on Twitter constantly and then cry victim when they respond.
And I'm the only woman on this panel to tell you that. I'm the only person sitting here to say to you, I need to be able to keep all men, however they identify, out of spaces where I am.
When she says spaces, she means her head. And she doesn't want trans people in her head, even though she's absolutely obsessed with trans.
Insults, nothing useful, talking over her.
Against patriarchy. These are things I don't want any men there.
The patriarchy prefers you, Helen. That's why that's why the Spectator publishes your articles.
Okay. I mean, I cringed a bit when Helen said the patriarchy as well, so hey, I don't know.
That's a whole LGB Alliance audience clapping for Helen there.
Thank you very much, Helen, for those.
Nervously.
Putting the boot in on the audience, poisoning the well.
So our final opening speech.
Yeah, she's talking about me stealing her book and me being the bad person for some reason, but I didn't steal her book.
Oh, I wonder why you come off as a bad person. Jesus Christ.
I write about her work, and I made her and other people's work freely available with my notes, which is part of my blog, which is called The Turf Reich. When I started that blog and called it that, it was a kind of ironic joke. I thought, well, it
was a joke. Yeah, okay, yeah. But can you see why people wouldn't want you to compare them to Nazis?
It's a strong statement, but as time has gone on, it's been more and more clear that if you've ever read the work of Umberto Eco and Incremental Fascism, that is actually correct. It might seem a pejorative to call somebody a fascist. Like when I went on to Julie Hartley-Brewer's show on Talk TV, and I said to Julia, you're linked, some of your guests are linked to far-right organisations.
Which is guilt by association, and not you talking to the guests, it's you talking about the guests. Well, no. It's you talking about other people that you're linking to the guests, irrespective. She was the one that accused, what was it, Debbie Hayton of being, like, with the LGB Alliance or something. And, like, when I looked it up, it was like she'd written about them once or twice. It was pretty pathetic.
And she rebutted that by saying, "No, you're calling everybody a Nazi now." And I said, "Julia, no, I didn't. But if you're going to put that word in your own mouth, are you admitting to it?" And that is what I was saying about that. So Helen, and she's saying that all the people that should be here are not here. It's because the people that campaign for human rights don't waste their time talking to people like you, because there's no value in anything you present. You're not an expert in anything. You're an expert in your own prejudice. Peter, no.
She's just mad as fuck. She's not even got a point at this point. She's just mad as fuck about this person. Like, every time she, like, refers to her as a man, you can see this, like, kind of twitching. And it's not that I don't understand it. Like, it's not nice to do, but hey, like, you're comparing them to, like, fascists and Nazis and saying, well, I read this book and it's comparable. that really depends on like the actual motives of the person, which you don't know because you don't know the person. But hey, I haven't read the book, so, but then, you know, Freda has and still comes off incredibly ignorant despite all the reading she's done, so hey.
Speaking against the motion, Peter...
And by the way, these bringing up books and stuff like that, especially when talking about like her expertise, that's very much a kind of sort of appeal to authority. Like, well, I've read the books, you know, and I'm the actual trans person. But appeal to authorities aren't really arguments, especially when, you know, for all I know, you can't actually fucking read, you know?
He is a veteran human rights campaigner and author. He's been a leading defender of LGBT rights since the 1960s, while also standing up for freedom of expression. He has been the subject...
I look fed up already, don't I?
Netflix documentary, Hating Peter.
You still see up my skirt? No?
When taken together, I think they're very lovable. And he's written and contributed to over 30 books.
Thank you very much. The premise of tonight's debate is that so-called transgender ideology is a threat to...
So-called? You're such a fucking liar, Peter. Like, fuck off with that shit. You're just repeating this dipshit's propaganda. It's a real thing. Just accept it. Accept that you have a vested interest in covering up trans people's shit for some reason when you're not even trans. Just fucking admit it.
Liberal values. I think contrary to what Marcus said, trans claims for rights and freedoms are not premised on postmodern ideology or anything else. They're based on a simple claim for trans people to be accepted for who they are.
And they are. We are accepted. In general.
It's a human rights cause, not an ideological cause.
Helen's cause has to make people hate us.
It can't just be they have certain qualms. They don't want to be forced to call you something they don't think you are. But we have to rephrase it to be worse than it is so people will be alarmed, I guess. I don't know.
I'd say that trans rights are no more an ideology than women's rights, or LGBT plus rights, or black rights. And the way
careful with that, Peter.
People are being demonised and scapegoated as a threat has echoes about the way in which women, when they make...
It is true that, you know, we are...
I do hate these, like, history arguments, by the way. Like, we don't live in that time anymore. Yeah, there'll be some parallels because we're still human beings, but our culture is very different. The way everyone has been raised is very different. You know, you can waffle on, yeah, like, these bad things happened as well in history. Yeah, they did, yeah. You know... I think whatever went down in fucking Stonewall, like, you try that again today, you'd get the shit kicked out of you, you'd get arrested and shit. Like, come on.
Are criticised and we are demonised in the same way other minorities are, but it's very different. It's very different.
LGBT people were scapegoated and demonised in the 70s and 80s when we made our claim for justice and freedom. And the same as the black community was demonised as a threat and danger by others.
But so trans people are also black and part of other minority groups. That's it.
And also... being trans is a choice where you have to necessarily change things about yourself. Being black, being gay, are just who you are. Like, when it comes to trans, it's having gender dysphoria that's the thing you can't control. Being trans is a choice. And that involves a lot of changing what you look like. That involves changing your social contract with everyone else and very much hoping that they will accept that, which not everyone does, as evidenced by some of the people here. Both of these people are talking bullshit as far as I can tell, but hey.
Distinction there, which Peter gets.
I don't know if the real threat to liberal values today is not the tiny, vulnerable trans community. It's the government's culture wars, which picks on the weak, the underprivileged. It's the government's restrictions on the right to protest, the attempt...
This is what's known as the single cause fallacy, by the way. There can be many causes, and there can be many threats to liberal values. Maybe the trans community are going to be less of a threat than a whole-ass government. But this is the conversation they're having, you know? And there are issues that do affect a lot of people, like women. You don't know who's got some kind of trauma that means they don't really want to be seeing men shaving in the fucking locker room, for example. But we want to gloss all over that. No, well, we have to talk about the government, actually. What about what the government's been doing? Well, we're not here to talk about that. Read the fucking thing on the screen if you need a refresher on what the question was. Because I tell you something, you'll see two people on one side of the stage that isn't this one, constantly trying to get back to the conversation at hand. And Peter does engage somewhat, and Freda does not at all. Like, that question might as well not be there, because she's just going to derail it to something else anyway, go off on a tangent, you know, get a bit Brianna Wu on us, and it's just annoying. Like, what are you doing?
Attempts to restrict the powers of the judiciary, the bid to weaken or raise the right to protest.
It's so
to
refreshing, isn't it? After all that, to hear Peter.
Withdraw from the
Because
European Convention on Human Rights.
It's so refreshing to hear someone sawing out like I do. Okay.
So
Those
factual.
are the real threats to
So
liberal.
factual. He hasn't justified a thing he said yet, but okay.
Humanitarian values today, not the trans.
Although I do disagree with Peter a little bit later
Now,
on.
I've got to say that I share and wholly accept the concerns about women's safety and welfare. I totally get that. I always have and always will. But
We're talking about vulnerable women, Peter.
That I don't believe that those concerns require a blanket restriction on the rights of all trans people. We should not generalize. People are individuals. There are good and bad in every community. Let's not demonize a whole community.
But it's not even that. It's like, we're not a community. Trans people. We do say the trans community.
Oh, it's this decentralizing thing again. There has to be a word for it, okay? There has to be, and there are communities. There is an overarching thing. There's like overarching beliefs. There's all sorts. Like, it's a perfectly fine term to use, even if it's not 100% accurate, because you'll want to fucking decentralize it. Well, no, we're all just doing our own thing that by some coincidence is exactly the same. I guess we must all just be right at the same time. Like, stupidity.
But we're not community in the sense that we're easy to identify like, in that way.
To support the trans cause.
Yeah, because you deliberately obfuscate it. It's like part of the grift. Like, you know it is. You're not going to say it is, but you know it is.
And many who don't. So it is not a universal view that this is women versus trans.
There's no women versus trans anyway.
Long-time feminists
This fucking panel is pretty much that, but okay.
who support the trans cause and trans inclusion. And we need to accept and understand that nuance. And we need to also understand on the trans side, there are different points of view. There are some on the trans side who accept the trans critical point of view.
Gee, I think he means Debbie Hayton.
Now,
Yeah, there's trans people that disagree with Freda. Oh yeah, let's go to an example of someone I really hate. We're going to pretend we're like good faith or whatever, sure.
I just want to give one example. I have a friend who works in a women's centre in the north of England. Nearly 7 years ago, they took the decision to allow trans women to participate in that centre. That decision was based on a discussion and vote, firstly by the staff, and then secondly by...
Well, this is how things are decided usually.
I checked recently, they've had trans women in that women's centre for nearly 7 years. There's never been a problem. So therefore I ask, why should that centre, which vets all women coming into it, including non-trans women, some of whom may have a history of violence against other women, they vet them all and...
Oh, I just want him to stop talking. God, these like older leftist guys, like, just finish the sentence, come on.
Exclude anyone who potentially poses a danger. The final point I want to make is that I think there's a lot of confusion in this debate. Trans women are trans women. They're not the same as other women.
I understand what he's saying here.
Different.
He's true. He's speaking the truth.
But equally valid.
She does not like being called not a woman. She does not like being called a man. Anything like that. It clearly is bothering her. I'm sorry. You know, you cast your fucking aspersions on what people think. You reach into people's heads constantly. I'm going to do the same to you. You're really bothered by this. You really get made big mad by this. It made you really big mad every time Helen Joyce would insinuate that you're a man or make comments about not having testosterone lowered your voice. Well, it's not that low. My voice is not that low either, but it's not that high either. Really bothers her.
There are two different things here. Sex and...
And she's like doing the like cutting people off and then stopping. This is so obviously bothering her. She is so fucking mad about this. Jesus Christ.
Gender identity. Women are women based on their biological sex.
No, they're not. No, women are women.
Ooh. See, I agree with Peter here. Like, you can't change your sex. Your sex is what it is. Like, you can change your gender, but you can't really change your sex. You can change things about you. You can change sexed things and gendered things, but you can't just grow a fucking uterus because you decided you're a woman and your body just changes to that of a woman. But she wants to make it all philosophical. Does it look like she's cracking a sea Kyle a bit there? It's okay. It's okay. I get you, Freda. We're one and the same, really. I understand the dog whistle, and we're one and the same.
For lots of reasons than their biological sex.
For lots of reasons.
Based on their gender identity.
None of which we're going to get. She's completely wrong, and she probably knows it. That's probably
And I'm
why.
not
So there's two different things at play here.
dictating to anyone that I'm a woman.
They are different, but their gender identity.
No, women are women.
Sex.
for lots of reasons than their biological sex.
Based on their gender.
Wait, you're not dictating to anyone that you're a woman, but lots of people do dictate to people, like, when they insist on, like, yeah, I know, the whole thing is vague. They have to keep as much of it vague as possible, because if we get into specifics, it'll probably show that they don't actually know what the fuck they're talking about. And these are just, like, you know, it's just word trickery and shit like that, and debate tactics. You know, if I wanted that, I'd go watch fucking Vorsh or some shit, you know, because that's his fucking shtick. And, you know, these people learn from different people. There seems to be a convergence of beliefs of the kinds of people that they learn from. And hey, I know this is tiring me. Just keep going.
Gender identity.
And I'm not
So there's two different things at play here.
dictating to anyone that I'm a woman.
Yeah, that's kind of what I was saying. Like, a lot of people do dictate that kind of thing. A lot of people do insist, yes, I'm a woman, even if they were born male, as opposed to just saying I'm a trans woman. A lot of people do. You can't just talk about yourself. Like, if someone's saying, like, well, I tend to come across people that look like men and don't make no effort, but they insist I'm a woman, that they're a woman, and they get, like, super angry and aggressive and shit about it. And she's saying, well, I don't do that. That isn't answering the question. Like, you have to be able to talk a bit more broadly, which is odd, because normally she's great at talking broadly. But as soon as it doesn't serve her to, suddenly it's, well, I don't do that, you know. It's the Hassan Piker thing. He does that fucking constantly.
Different, but they're equally valid. Now, we all have a gender identity. Some people say gender identity...
This is interesting. What happens here?
I'm looking at the way you're dressing. Clearly, you identify as a woman because you're dressing in a more inclined to a female way of dressing than a male.
That's ridiculous, by the way. Like, I would love to talk to a bunch of so-called cis people, normal people, whatever the fuck, and be like, okay, so you're a man. So the way you dress, the reason why you dress that way is because you were born male and you identify as a man. Your identity is the same as what your sex is. Like, don't you have to, like, have thought about something to really have an identity about it? Can you unconsciously have an identity about something? That doesn't make sense to me. To me, it makes much more sense. Someone like Peter Tatchell, he has been around men, presumably, like his father and his other relatives and his friends. That's probably much more of an influence. And of course, what is being sold in shops, of course, what the trends are saying for men and for women. It's got nothing to do with, like, oh, I'm a man and I identify as a man, so I've come in a suit and tie today. Like, that's preposterous. And if everyone has a gender identity, how come some of them are, like, weirdly, like, specific and, like, you know, very fleshed out, almost like a character in a book or something? But then cis people, it's just, oh, well, I'm a man. So, like, what? Some people have a deeper sense in it than others, or just some people have spent more time staring up their navel than others? Like, which is it?
I was interrupting Peter there because I disagreed with that.
Shush.
We all have a gender identity.
Helen's saying, telling her children to keep quiet there because she knows they're her people.
And looking around the...
Well, isn't that responsible? Isn't that, you know, her trying to take a bit of accountability for her audience rather than being like, well, you know, you're a bit of a dick, so I'm just sick them on you, you know?
Audience, looking around the audience, you have all taken, or most of you have taken gender decisions about...
No, that's not appropriate.
This is completely retarded. I don't know what the fuck he's on thinking this kind of shit. Like, at that age, listening to fucking gender weirdos on fucking Twitter or wherever the fuck he's getting this shit from, queer theory, I don't know. I don't know what I'm supposed to blame, because every time you mention something, it's like, oh no, you can't say that. That's a right-wing dog whistle. That's what the right-wingers say about us. Okay, well, I'm saying it too, and I'm not a right-winger.
I'm sorry, let's let him get this.
They don't like the idea that Peter is saying that they have a gender identity, but
It's because they think it's stupid.
the gender identity is not based on clothing, necessarily.
Most of you have taken decisions.
He's not, oh my god, oh my god, oh my god. I'm gonna get so fucking triggered. He's not even saying that. He's saying the other way round, that the way you dress is based on your gender identity. He's not saying your gender identity is based on your clothes. Oh my god, listen, he's on the same side as you. Listen to what he's saying. Like, I don't agree with a lot of shit he's saying, but he's at least making the odd point. Even if it's wrong. Do you know what I mean? Like, fuck. And you can't even understand the wrong point that he's making. You can't even correctly understand the wrong point that he is making. It's insane. Like, what gives this person the idea that they can go onto this kind of thing? What gives them what gives them this arrogance that they can talk about how someone talks about something that they're not an expert in, when this is apparently your ability to listen. No wonder you can't do normal debates, because you can't listen to people and understand what they're saying. So instead, you just have an idea of what you want to talk about instead, and then just steamroll the conversation. Like, as soon as it's your turn to talk, it doesn't matter what the other people said, because you weren't listening anyway. You don't have to listen, because that's not required for your tactic, which requires no brain power. Anyone can do that shit. It's just ridiculous.
Decision to dress in a gendered way based on how you identify. So I think
it's an interesting observation, but I don't fully agree.
It's not an interesting observation. It's just stupid. Let's just, it's just stupid. That's all there is to it. They laughed at him because it was stupid. That's all there is to it.
Recognize that gender identity,
because the way I dress
as much
is not, we're seen as not appropriate for a woman.
Don't do this. I said I didn't want it done to me. Don't do it to Peter.
So that's...
Wait, what's she even getting at there?
As much
is not, we're seen as not appropriate for a woman.
To dress in a gendered way based on how you identify. So I think
it's an interesting observation, but I don't fully agree with it. Because the way I dress...
Does she mean the way she's dressed now? Like in this debate? Does she mean then? Because it's inappropriate because you look kind of like a hooker and everyone else looks like they're dressed in smart clothes. In general, I need to hear more like what she means by that, like, or what people said it in the context of. I don't know.
Is not, we're seen as not appropriate for a woman.
Don't do this. I said I didn't want it done to me. Don't.
Because I mean, in general, her dress, I don't see it as inappropriate. Like, I see this one as inappropriate for the kind of arena that she's in, you know, the environment. But would I say that she's dressing inappropriately for a woman? It depends how you're saying that. And it's probably got nothing to do with gender identity anyway.
Do it to Peter.
So that's Helen telling off her children.
Okay, so...
yeah, so, you know, this idea of gender dressing, I understand what he means, but for me there is no gender kind of paradigm like that. Whatever you are, whatever you express to me is ephemeral and it can change with the weather. You know, I sometimes...
What? I mean, you can consciously, like, choose to not dress in a gendered way, but it's still there. It still exists. There's still norms. You can break them if you want. Does that mean you have a different gender? Not necessarily. You still might just be male or female, but you're more aware of that kind of shit. Like, you don't conform as much to certain things. You conform to something else instead, usually, because you see a lot of queer people, they avoid looking male or female, but then most of them just end up looking the same in their own way, because it feels more like a fashion thing than anything.
Dress in a masculine way, I sometimes dress in a feminine way. Most of the time, I just look like a fat goth bitch. But that's just me, you know. Is that gendered? I don't know. And I...
Yes, you wear women's clothes. I've only ever seen you in women's clothes. You're clearly presenting yourself a certain way, wanting to be seen a certain way, which is fine. It's like, Jesus Christ.
I don't fully agree with Peter, but I understand what he's trying to say, because he's saying there are people in the audience that make decisions based on how they express themselves, and that is true, but that's different from being trans. I think there's no link.
Yeah, it's different to being trans. I don't think he was trying to draw a distinction. He wasn't saying that any of the members of the audience were trans based on, like, their dress. He was just saying that everyone has a gender identity, like, which I don't agree with. I think it's bullshit, but at least he made a coherent point, which he didn't even understand, apparently, so...
there to being transgender and how you dress, because I know trans women that are very, you know, dress very androgynously, and they don't necessarily wear dresses or makeup, and that, because there's no...
Well, it's different for everyone, and, you know, some people are gonna deliberately try and suppress that kind of thing. Does that mean that their gender's something different? Not necessarily.
Clear remit for that. What does it mean? I mean, I know very butch women, you know, that wear makeup. It doesn't make any sense, that.
Wow, it's almost like, I don't know, I feel like she makes a lot more effort in her clothing than I do. I just wear kind of t-shirts and stuff and, like, leggings. But I wear a decent amount of makeup. Does that mean that I'm some kind of gender fuck thing, or does it mean that I just present myself a certain way where I put more effort into some things than I do others? I'm not sure. I don't see what she's really getting at here. I don't think anything she's saying really proves anything or means that much of anything. And it's pretty clear that she is pushing, you know, she wants to be seen as a woman. If you weren't wanting to be seen as a woman, you wouldn't have this makeup on, you wouldn't be doing that hair, you wouldn't have these eyebrows, which are quite well done, to be fair. I'll give her that. You know, these kind of clothes, which, you know, you look feminine in. But it's pretty clear that, you know, I don't think what she's saying matches up with what she looks like, really. And everyone has days where they just wear like a hoodie or something, you know what I'm saying?
Really. Well, I understand what he's trying to convey, and I criticise it just like I would anything else. But within the parameters of this debate, Peter is missing the fact that these people don't care about that. They just think I am a threat.
I don't know where she's getting that from. They're saying that there's certain threats to certain women's rights because, you know, you've got born males that are now accessing women's spaces and women's sports and stuff like that. That's not saying you're a threat in general. That's you broadening it out, which again, every time it's not appropriate to, that's when she does. Every time it's appropriate to, that's when she doesn't. It's mad. But it makes perfect sense if you just think of it as she doesn't know what the fuck she's on about. I can barely fucking talk.
Everyone for your opening remarks, and I think it was an important time to remind
There's me laughing. I just find the whole thing ridiculous at this point.
There's me laughing. Wow, it sure is. Thanks, Sniper Wolf.
And I'm thinking, please let me go home.
Yeah, because you don't listen to anyone anyway. You don't care about these points. You don't care about furthering the conversation, you know, or trying to put your hand on the needle a little bit and see if you can move it in our direction a bit, because you don't care about any of that. You care about putting on a fucking performance.
Honestly, it was so traumatic. Thank you to people that sent me nice messages, though, because it really...
Traumatic? What traumatized you exactly? This is all your own making. What traumatized you?
It made my day when you did.
Not interrupt each other completely, but to come in on different points where they think is unnecessary, although, again, please be respectful to each other. Mark, I want to...
I'm not there to argue, you know, I'm just there to...
Well, no, you are. You're just not there to argue this point. You're here to argue something else. And this is complete cope. Like, you know it went fucking terribly, and the only way you can justify it is to say, well, it's performance art. It's like, fuck me. Who was it? Does anyone remember Romeo Rose, Sleepless in Austin? He made this deranged website where he had this huge, like, paragraphs and paragraphs of, like, his expectation for what his girlfriend should be like. You know, incredibly specific and, like, detailed descriptions of what his woman should and has to be like if they're going to be together. And, like, he did some, like, weird YouTube shit and shit like that. Eventually he started going around being like, oh, it was just a performance. I'm a performance artist. This is all just performance art. And it's like, really, I don't know. Because he still just acted like the parody. If he was being the parody, he still acted like the parody. So it's like, really? She acts very much like a parody of trans rights activists. And if that's what she's doing, and this is like deep cover, then genuinely well done, because you got me. And that's hilarious, you know? But I don't think that's the case.
Struggle along and be who I am, you know.
Concern is more or less a conspiracy.
I look terrible.
Really that much worried about. If you look at something like extending the point, the UK census says maybe something like 0.2% of people identify as a trans man.
I'm starting to go up in a hell and they're going to look at you, you nasty piece of work.
Yeah, like staring at her. Like, imagine that. You're like the only woman here, and this fucking, what you think of as a bloke is like just fucking staring at you, like. She doesn't seem to care very much for, like, etiquette or, like, societal norms, like, behavioral norms. Like, don't sit there and stare at someone like that, you know? Like, look, oh my god. It's weird. That's weird. She seems proud of it, though, so hey.
Some kind of threat to liberal ideology, or live and let live?
Well,
Do you think she's deliberately, like, looking away? Well, I suppose he's talking, but still.
Transgender people are clearly not a threat to...
Thank you, Mark. Very nice of you to say.
What is a threat?
That's the problem, though, like, clearly that's not what they're saying, but then everything else you'll just regard as that's what they're saying, though.
Threat, I contend, is a political movement often made up of people who are not trans themselves and not claiming...
He's talking about human rights.
Shut the fuck up. It's a political movement. Human rights are political, I would have thought, especially when they're given to you through politics. So there has to be, like, an element of that, surely. And a human rights, like, group can absolutely have, like, a political leaning or other, and it'll influence the way they do things, and it'll influence what their policies are, what they're saying they're for. Like, what I think she's trying to, like, obfuscate that kind of thing a little bit, but it's not convincing. Like, it's clear that this guy actually knows a little bit about this shit and what he's talking about. And she probably feels like he's pulling the curtain down, so she's having to, no, it's not that, no. But she has really very little to say about him, it turns out, you know.
Organisations who just defend
new left political
what he's saying with freedom to be ourselves.
Are using this issue
Nobody's making you think a certain way, Mark.
Is that why, if we're just having the freedom to be ourselves defended, is that why we should let fucking whole ass men just shave their faces in locker rooms, and women should be okay with that? Because I tell you what, if I was in a locker room and I went around the corner and there's just a man shaving his fucking face and I thought I was in the women's, I wouldn't know what the fuck to do. I'd be like extremely anxious. But we're trying to pretend that there's no harm ever caused by us being where we are, you know? I don't know. I'm losing my mind.
This group of people and define them as...
We are talking about human rights organisations who just defend
new left political
what he's saying with freedom to be ourselves.
Are using this issue
Nobody's making you think a certain way, Mark.
This group of people.
This isn't true. Like, this is the thing. I feel like every time she says something, I have to like look into, like, find all these examples of like why it's not actually true, because she says stuff so like she doesn't really justify anything. Just kind of states her opinions as facts, which is like, even when I was a kid, like that kind of shit used to drive me up the wall, like when people do that. So like, I don't know, that hasn't changed.
And define them as an identity group,
No.
should have political... Trans themselves are not claiming...
He's talking about human rights organisations.
Men. Political movement often
But
made up of people who are not trans themselves, are not claiming...
He's talking about human rights organisations
men
who just defend
new left political...
She's talking over him. I can barely hear what he's saying. Hang on.
what he's saying.
Themselves are not claiming...
He's talking about human rights
Often they're not claiming to be trans.
organisations
men
who just defend
new left political
what he's saying with freedom to be...
They're mostly new left political activists, progressives, shall we say. I wish you'd use progressives. I think that's a better word.
ourselves.
Are using this issue
Nobody's making you think a
We're using this issue
certain way, Mark.
this group of people and define them as an identity group.
and define them as an identity group.
No.
But she hasn't listened to a word he says. She says, I'm not going to pause it, I'm just going to talk over it. You can do that, that's fine. I'm not criticizing the fact that you want to do that. But what it means is that you're not going to hear some of the shit that they're saying. Because if I just play this and talk at the same time, I would miss tons of what they're saying. And yeah, it would go by quicker and I'd be able to fucking go and make dinner sooner, but fuck me. So yeah, she hasn't heard a word he says and still disagrees with him somehow.
Should have political, there should be laws in relation to that group, which do by definition
the laws
will impinge on the rest of society.
Basically.
Yes, that's true. How can that not be true?
I can call myself female.
Politicization of transgenderism. So this is very much political.
Yeah, you can call yourself what you want, but should you have any rights because of that? I think he's trying to say that's not very liberal. Because, funnily enough, there was supposed to be a subject, I don't know.
Movement. Let me just give you two very quick examples. This government is planning or considering proceeding with a law that will make it illegal for individuals to have private consenting conversations with...
How can you police people's private conversations? You mean, maybe...
who are thinking of going
I can't think of a place where that would happen.
Medical...
So it's not true, and she just kind of used a logical argument rather than actually debunking it as being like, this isn't actually what's happening.
Surgery.
So he's talking about perhaps doctors talking to trans children, maybe, or trans individuals who
Noakes and Theresa May and Alicia Kearns and other people will make it a criminal offence for...
He's talking about conversion therapy, isn't he?
They always do this, man. When people talk about conversion therapy, they really need to define what they mean by it, because what he seems to be describing is psychotherapy, sitting in front of a person and talking about the issue rather than just going straight for the let's get you on the hormones kind of thing, because it might explore other things rather than this person being trans, which I guess is what they're stating, which could be the case. They could have other things going on with them that they're interpreting as being trans, such as, maybe they have severe PTSD, because trauma can often be, found in trans people. Why is that conversion therapy, though? Because they're exploring other options first before being nah, you need to transition. Why is that conversion therapy? And again, we don't explain anything. It's just writing it off as conversion therapy, just trying to get that what am I trying to say? That association, trying to make that association between what he's describing and conversion therapy. So if you say it enough times that people it'll just click for them. They'll just automatically start saying it too. None of you know what the fuck you're talking about. What's conversion therapy? What conversion therapies are currently going on in this country? Because I tell you something, every time I see these things like we need to ban conversion therapy in the UK, I don't know what conversion therapy is still carried out in the UK. Like when I hear about conversion therapy, I think of like America. I think of like some of the religious stuff. You know what I'm saying?
Consenting private conversations. That's an incredible thing to do in a free society.
No.
To prevent people from having an expression.
That law exists to stop people influencing others.
Stop people influencing others, i.e. you think that people are going to tell people they're not trans and that's how it's going to work. Is that even conversion therapy?
I don't think I picked up on that at this point. I was too busy looking at Alan stealing my wine.
Trans care, do you think that's something that
Well, just pick up on a couple of things Mark said about politicisation. Trans people don't politicise their identity.
Yes, they do. Fuck off with that shit. Yes, they do. How many times has a trans person said trans is political? I disagree. I think it is politicised, both by other people and by us.
When you come out as trans and you start to exist in the world and people can identify you as trans, you become a walking protest, whether you choose to be or not.
So you've just contradicted yourself then. I'm not a fucking walking protest of anything, okay? I'm fucking protesting the fact that I have to fucking still be here, but apart from that, I'm not a protest of anything. I'm just being myself, literally, which is what you've been saying until now, and now it's like, oh no, you're a protest against what? I don't fucking care about that shit. I just want to fucking live my life, man.
You know, your existence is politicised by outside forces. But you can be.
So your existence isn't political, it's politicised by other people, and so you become like a mirror, so because of that politicisation, your very existence is a protest? What the fuck are we talking about?
Become like me, active, and do things like this, and go on TV and radio, and put yourself into a political sphere, but being trans...
Make a fucking twat out of yourself.
Gender or non-binary within itself is not political individually, but if you exist in a world where somebody can...
I agree. Most trans people, I feel like, would disagree, though.
Attack you or make you feel excluded or isolated because you don't fit a specific gender paradigm, then that is political. And it's coming from, you know...
Is it political every time? Are you sure someone's not just calling you a nonce or something because they're a bit of a piece of shit and they like mouthing off at people they don't know? And maybe they had some kind of shitty childhood that made them think it was okay to act this way?
Increasingly so, when you look at the newspapers in this country, it's coming from that's where it's coming from. They're politicising it to use you as a wedge issue or a political football.
I hate wedge issue. Like, fuck that shit. Do you know why they put this shit in the media? It's because it sells. It's because they want the divisive shit that fucking sells. It's not a fucking wedge issue. I mean, maybe for the Conservative Party now it is, because they're trying to push the anti-trans thing. But the reason they're trying to do that is because they're desperate. Like, they're not going to win the next election. Rishi Sunak's on about fucking national service. That's what level we're at with the Conservatives. No one wants them anymore. They're gonna be gone. So like this wedge issue shit, which I agree is a waste of time because, you know, it doesn't influence elections and it's not gonna do this one really. It's just not, it's not apt. Like maybe in America a little more, but ultimately the shit that's in the media, they're not driving a wedge issue. They want to fucking sell shit because they know it outrages people on both sides.
Well, that's what Mark is actually describing, but it's not me doing that. I just happen to be here because I have found that to use you as a wedge issue or a political football, that's what Mark is actually describing, but it's not me doing that. I just happen.
How are you not doing that? How are you not contributing to that? How are you not literally part of that politicization in every sense? Especially when you insist on coming on these things to make broad political statements. You know, fuck me. Trying to listen to this person is just crazy. Like, how do you reason with any of this? Like, Jesus, fuck. 22 likes. Who are the 22 people that like this video? Fuck me.
To be here because I have found that I'm being talked about a lot on the telly, and I just thought, well, I'm not going to stand for this. I'm going to be part of this conversation, or you either include me in this conversation.
Are you being talked about, or are trans people being talked about?
Or shut up. That's my attitude at first, but you know.
I think I was really talking about gender affirming care. It's this idea that I'm dictating to society what I am. I'm not. It's, when I exist in the world, I don't have to make any effort for people to call me miss or she, her. They just do it because it's within society. The risk assessment has been done over like decades with trans people. It's not, in the last few years, there's been this kind of luxury vexation about it.
Luxury vexation is one of my favourite phrases.
Get articles in the Daily Mail. It's like, I don't understand what's going on, because where I live...
Do you have a specific view on...
I'm coming out my own...
A lot of luxury vexation. What's an example of that in the trans community? I don't know. That dumb prick that was whining about there not being they, them pronouns in Stardew Valley. There we go. We do it too. Great.
I don't have a specific... I know where I live. When I go to the chippy...
I keep mentioning the chippy.
Mark is misinformed. I've seen the government proposals. They under no circumstances would criminalise conversations, say, between parents and children.
Helen's views are the views of the petit bourgeois. You know...
Oh, Marxism. Here we go. This is going to be all fucking nonsense. I'm going to call it now.
Luxury vexation, I call it. And it's like this very exclusive club of people in Westminster. They're all in that room. They're all at the Battle of Ideas with Claire Fox. They'll all be at any of these Tufton Street meetings. These are not, you know, people that are struggling on the street or have real issues with systemic misogyny or gender.
Do you think there's people that aren't struggling on the street? Like, there's so many, like, working class, like, right-wing people in this country who tend to blame, like, immigration and stuff like that for their issues, which, hey, there's probably a contributing factor there too. Like, hang on, give me a sec.
Or people that are struggling on the street, or...
Like, does she not think that there are a lot of people struggling on the street that feel the same way as Helen Joyce, but she's the one that writes about it and stuff? She's the one that's probably going to give the best version of it.
Have real issues with systemic misogyny or gender issues, you know, it
is so easy. It is so easy for someone that's born male to say that about someone that's born female who was not being wolf whistled by fucking construction workers at the age of 12 and up. Things like that. Like, it's a real male fucking thing. I don't know. I'm losing my mind. Are there any political trans leftists that you enjoy? I like some of ContraPoints' work. In terms of pro-trans, I like someone called Destiny. He's kind of leftist, I guess. Even then, it's mostly like liberals I watch rather than like leftists. Like there's other trans figures that I think are decent enough. That guy, what is it? God damn it, Malcolm seems okay. There's like some out there, but most of them I find pretty terrible. I think probably eventually there's going to be more because more and more trans people are getting sick of this kind of representation. But at the moment, the majority of them are pretty deeply flawed, and no one really criticizes them, and no one really takes the time to dissect the shit that they're doing and show people why it's wrong, because people will blindly support this kind of shit because it's pro-trans. So many people will support all kinds of shit that is insane, but it's pro-trans, and they just haven't thought about it that much because the trans person's telling them, well, yeah, this is important, this is what we need. It's very easy to play on that kind of bias and that kind of compassion that a lot of people have. But yeah, there's the odd one. I respect a few of them. And there's one person called Shivani Dave who does similar kinds of stuff to Freda in the sense of going on like panels and stuff. I don't agree with her on a lot of stuff, and I think she does do the same kind of things of like broadening things out and trying to move conversations away from where they're supposed to be. But she at least makes arguments and at least makes sense and like at least engages in a smart kind of way, you know, can talk about the cast report without it being a huge fucking conspiracy. So like there are some people, but not many, if that helps.
This is a manufactured movement that has some aims to restructure.
Manufactured. Show the manufacturing.
How trans people exist. And that's how it is. It's not about...
Yeah, exactly. She's not... That Shivani person, I wouldn't call a political troll, really. This person is a troll. Like, you know, I don't know what the point of this is. I can't rationalize it in my mind. And I appreciate that plenty of people think the same about me, and that's why they make a lot of assumptions about me, because they can't conceive of a world where you know, someone thinks like I do, because I don't think the same way they do, and they can only think in their own way. But I can't rationalize this shit any other way. And it feels like so many trans people are happy to like sign off on this kind of shit, because it's like, oh yeah, it's cool, yeah, you're really showing Helen Joyce by talking about your cock in front of her, you know?
Altruism. There's no altruism, even though Helen likes to pretend there is. There is none of that in any of the messages or any of the outcomes for Sex Matters. It doesn't, like...
When am I going to make ContraPoints-esque videos? I'm not attractive enough to do that. If I make enough money that I can get, like, facial surgery, then I'll consider it. And I can afford better clothes, because most of my clothes are quite plain, I guess. I've got the lighting down. I want to be... She's already... With this setting, she's definitely the second, like, ContraPoints British skinwalker. So I'm going to be the third one. And it's going to be third time lucky, because I'm going to be the good one. I'm going to be the good trans British ContraPoint skinwalker. But I need to be more attractive before I can do that.
Like I say, there are no prizes for women in the Sex Matters project, or any, say, of these anti-trans lobby groups that spread the lie that they say fair play for women. Or
Yeah, it's all manufactured. Won't show the manufacturing, just... you know, fit it into some ideology that you read on this fucking bookshelf somewhere because you think that reading makes you intelligent, when reading doesn't necessarily make you intelligent.
Women's Rights Network, it's nothing to do with women's rights.
Cases of our problems, but is it possible
It's got nothing to do with women's rights, but you're just kind of justifying it in your own way that makes you the victim. Do you think people won't respect you because you don't pass well enough? I don't worry about that, actually. I find that I do pass well enough for people to respect me in general. Like, there's the odd person that's going to, like, shout at me from a van window, which I don't respect them because they can't even say it to my face, you know? But in general, like, when I've had jobs, I worked in an office for almost 5 years. I had no problems using the toilet there. No one referred to me as a man, as a YouTuber. I mean, people are going to not respect me for a million fucking reasons before me not passing well enough. So I don't really care. I don't care if people don't respect me, because usually I find these people haven't really made any effort to understand what I'm saying anyway. So, and I'm trying to reach people that are more likely to actually listen to points, you know? If someone's just not going to listen and engage and then talk shit about my appearance, then who fucking gives a shit, you know? But yeah, I mean, you know, if you're trans, you're always going to get more shit than if you're not, unless you're in a really, really, like, deeply ingrained bubble or something. But I don't really care. I mean, you know, I worked at a Weatherspoon when I started transitioning, when I looked way worse than I do now, and I survived it. You know, people said all sorts of shit to me. If anything, it just kind of toughened me up a bit. And maybe more people who are trans should do that. But I'm not actually recommending in case someone does that and then gets really fucked up. So, you know.
Some of these spaces with trans people as well, or is that something completely out of the question?
So it's been understood since the 1990s, when women's centres were opened, that women who have experienced child abuse or sexual trauma, rape, domestic violence very, very often find that recovery is only possible in female-only spaces.
That's true.
And have a trauma response, even, for example, to a male voice. So this is, of course, not all women by any means.
So what if you're a woman with a deep voice?
Unquestioned basis
That's not a male voice.
for the women's movement.
Which does exist.
Where no men are allowed.
But isn't a male voice. A woman with a deep voice still usually sounds different to a man. And anyway, if you are a woman with a deep voice, they might hear it, get panicked, see where the source of the voice is, and think, oh, okay, it's fine. So, yeah.
Including, for example,
it's not about voices.
You know, just fix the plumbing or to deliver something. Like really no males.
Which is very
some
rare.
Research work recently with women's centres, and Sex Matters has also done some research work.
The only research Sex Matters have done is on the basis of excluding trans women.
How can she have done no research and yet arrived at the correct conclusion, but the only research she's done is about excluding trans women? How do you even fucking know what research she's done? Like, people do this to me constantly. It's so annoying. Like, because you don't agree with someone, they can't have done any research and they can't understand what they're talking about. How do you know you don't understand what you're talking about? Trans people can be some of the worst fucking people for talking about trans issues because of, like, the bias and the need for it to make sense on our terms. Otherwise, we might be wrong and that might turn our worlds upside down. You know, I wrestled with that years ago, and it turns out I'm fucking fine. So if I'm not actually trans because it doesn't exist and I'm just a fucking weird man who got vaginaed, then I'm okay with that because my life's actually all right. So, you know, that's not really a reason to have that much of a bias and to believe bullshit just to make yourself feel good.
It's not about helping women.
It's very difficult to say in front of funders that you don't accept.
Yeah, and this is just what she's saying. It's not about helping women. How the fuck do you know what it's about? Like, you don't listen to these people anyway. You're not listening now. You haven't been listening to you didn't listen to half of what he said and you still disagreed somehow. You said she did no research, but when she was talking about the research she's done into women recovering better in female-only spaces, you agreed. Did she have to do research to find that out, or did she just get that by mistake? Like, oh, that just happens to be something she knows. I don't know.
Oh, she's blaming the funders.
What overwhelmingly do is sort of say that they are trans inclusive and cross their fingers behind their backs and try and manage a way to maintain a single-sex space while not losing the funding that they need in order to support very, very vulnerable women. That's basically what the centres have always done. They've never said...
There's no conspiracy that centres are not being funded because they include trans women. It's because women don't trust organisations that exclude people, because trans women exist within social groups. Like in Manchester...
She's not gonna justify this, I bet. We'll have a nice anecdote, but she's not going to justify that. I mean, she talks about Manchester. She says something about there not being enough facilities to have a woman-only one, so God knows how this is going to be, like, relevant.
With sex workers that worked on the street, for example, a lot of the trans women work with those women.
No men in that space. No men at all. No matter how they identify.
I wonder if you want to respond to any of those points. I mean, I understand your general point here that all you're generally interested in is experiencing life and having...
Well, what I experience working for the ambulance service in Manchester...
Oh, if only he knew, like, what she's actually about. These people, like, try as hard as they can to be good faith, and I'm doing the exact same thing by actually listening to her arguments as much as I can and not just talking over her and then being like, oh, that's bollocks. No, that's not right. No, that's not true. How is it not true? You know? But you'll never get it back from them. So a big part of me, I can see why he's bothering. I don't know why I'm bothering, but I'm going to try to anyway, because I think other people will hear that, you know, oh my God. Sorry, someone just started shouting really loudly. Anyway, let's keep going.
Manchester, there's no money. If you're a woman and you want to seek help, you've been raped, there's no way you're not going to see a man in that process. There's only 2 centres.
This is completely irrelevant, by the way. That's not a problem with what Helen Joyce is saying. That's a problem with whatever you have in your city, like the provision of resources not being enough. Like maybe there's not the budget for it. But that's really got nothing to do with this conversation.
Crisis centres in Manchester. Only one of them is 24-hour.
I mean, you could argue that, therefore, what she's saying is unrealistic, but is there always only ever going to be 2 of them? Like, what if there is more, you know?
A woman, if you're on the street, I work with women who are drug and alcohol dependent. I work with women who escape in domestic violence.
They don't factor this in at all.
Through the ambulance service. I do a lot of
They don't factor this in. What, your anecdotes? No, I wonder why.
other things. But the main complaint from them is not trans women. That's not even on their radar.
The main complaint isn't trans women from any of these people, because there's not that many trans people. This isn't a good way to argue it, because, yeah, we're a tiny amount of the people. So, yeah, not many people are complaining about us. But people are saying that they've identified issues that you're not engaging with because you've decided they're all conspiracies. And then anytime you think that she's alluding to a conspiracy on your side, you just deny it. So, hey, this is like... I would say it's the idiot coin in motion, but she's the only idiot here. And this guy, I don't think Peter Tatchell's an idiot. I just disagree with him intensely. And I thought the everyone has a gender identity argument was idiotic. But yeah, I mean, if you put her against some fucking gender critical Twitter troll, this would just be the idiot coin in action. Flip it, you might get her, you might get the fucking Twitter troll. But she's up against someone that actually knows what they're talking about. So... she's kind of fucked, which is why she isn't engaging with anything. She's just going off on fucking tangents and anecdotes. Because you can't prove anecdotes wrong. But anecdotes are just stories. And who knows, like, how truthful. She already said she spoke to Penny Mordaunt and someone else when it was like, we just emailed a bit. Okay, great.
Because they don't notice it.
It's systemic, institutional and structural misogyny.
That's something that Helen is willing to ignore every time.
Like, how do you even know that? Like... I don't know. I just hate like when people psychoanalyze each other. I hate when people tell each other how they think. I think you have to be careful with that. And it's not like I'm never gonna do that, because sometimes you kind of have to, where you're saying it kind of seems like this person's being dishonest. But I'm never gonna be like 100% sure of any like speculation I make. This person is 100% sure that this woman is the most cartoonishly evil version of herself possible. Because if she wasn't this lost in the fucking sauce, she wouldn't be here in the first place. And she has a fucking impetus to make her out to be the worst kind of person possible, you know?
Following the messages of sex matters. That's not going to happen. You might find that some women just need female-only spaces, and that's fine. You know, I understand
those individuals will get that service.
As somebody that was born female, but that is not the driving thing.
No, I'm not going to frame myself as the problem.
So if hang on.
That some women just need female-only spaces, and that's fine. You know, I understand
those individuals will get that service.
So they're necessary. So in some way you kind of agree with her, because she's saying that that's what's needed, and you're kind of agreeing with her. But she's done no research, and her goal has got nothing to do with women, I guess. Even though she's kind of made a point that suggests that that is literally what she's about.
As somebody that was born female, but that is not the driving thing.
No, I'm not going to frame myself as the problem to women.
People that seek services like that, what they need is somebody that cares.
Well, that's right.
Who's going to listen.
But that doesn't grapple with what she was saying about how a lot of them need like female-only spaces. And you're saying, well, yeah, we'll get that. So you agree with her then? So there should be some spaces that, you know, only born females should be in. So like, what are we doing then? We've had a massive anecdote about God knows what, and it's, oh my God. I can't, oh, fucking hell. This is melting my brain. Actually decimating my brain.
And there's just not enough money.
And the police are the problem there, because the police are misogynistic.
Police are misogynistic, there we go. I wonder if it's like ACAB by the end of this.
To be clear,
I wasn't very clear there about what I meant.
Any person has a history of
Let Peter
violence
speak.
and sexual abuse against.
Well, yeah, because when you go off on anecdotes and don't really answer questions and literally actually agree with what she's saying anyway, then yeah, it's not very clear, strangely enough.
Women, they have absolutely no right and no place in any woman's space.
Right, so I would just point
Notice how the moderator lets Alan speak.
Notice how you're talking over her.
Clear there about what I
Any
meant.
person has a history of
Let Peter
violence and
speak.
sexual abuse against women. They have absolutely no right and no place in any woman's space.
Right, so I would just point
Notice how the moderator lets Alan speak.
I can't hear what she's saying.
And no place in any woman's space.
Right, so I would just
Notice how the moderator lets Alan speak. Exactly, Helen. But you're not helping that.
There is no possibility of doing a risk assessment based on what we know about.
So she's just contradicting herself
The
now.
only way to keep violent men.
How would you know? You spoke over half of what she was saying. Can you honestly hear her? Because even if you can, I can't. So if I'm a bit more impressionable and a bit more, like, narcissistic enough that I think trans people are the center of the universe, I'll just accept everything she says uncritically, and I can't even hear what she's saying to, like, understand it. And then she just disagrees anyway. Like, what?
But she's happy to focus on somebody like Isla Bryson.
Focus on someone like Isla Bryson, someone who is an example of why maybe we shouldn't just let someone call themselves a woman and then be allowed wherever the fuck they want in like women's spaces when they were a fucking rapist of women. And there's pictures of them going around in like their jogging bottoms with like her hair covering her face because of all the tattoos, and then a massive fucking outline of her penis. You know what I'm saying her penis as if this is, Jesus Christ. I hate this. Obviously you have to use examples. You're not making an example of someone, you have to use examples. Like, they want prisons to be a female-only space, and an example of that is they don't want a rapist like Isla Bryson to just come out as trans sometime after the rapes, show off her cock still, and be allowed into a women's prison. Like, that's an example. I know you're allergic to examples, but Jesus Christ, don't demonize other people that use them.
And ignore people like Patsy Stevenson and Sister Space. So I'm basically just reiterating what I've already said. You know, there's no prizes for women at the end of the Sex Matters project. There's just not. It doesn't exist to
What does that even mean?
do that. It exists to, you know, delegitimize transgender identity. That is it.
Based on what?
Just be honest. I wouldn't mind so much if
Just be honest. No, she's going to move on. She's not going to explain any of that. Just shit talking, that's all it is.
they were honest about that. Instead of wrapping this thing up in fair play for women, the Women's Rights Network, standing for women, they're using feminism as a weapon and a shield and a dog whistle for anti-LGBTQ views or expression. And also, the LGBT Alliance don't stand for LGBT people anyway. We know that. Because
Well, they stand for some of them. This has all just been conspiracy, by the way.
they don't actually do any work in communities. Whereas like someone like an organisation like the LGBT Foundation, they have outreach programs for people with homelessness issues or drug and alcohol addiction. They have all these services or signposts to services because they do actual real work. LGBT Alliance don't. They don't do anything. They just amplify things.
Hang on, that's Jesus Christ.
Because they don't actually do any work in communities. Whereas like someone like
That doesn't mean what she just said, by the way.
an organisation like the LGBT Foundation, they have outreach programs for people with homelessness issues or drug and alcohol addiction. They have all these services or signposts to services.
She was just saying that this organisation that she likes does all this stuff and then suddenly changes it to signposts to organisations that do that stuff. What, so they link to some charities? Okay. So that makes them better. By the way, I'm looking at the LGBT Alliance thing because I can't be fucking asked to listen to this shit anymore. They have like campaigns and shit like that, I don't know. End conversion therapy. You'd think you'd be like pro that, I mean, it's an advocacy group. Like, what? They don't do anything in the community. Oh wait, no, they don't signpost to people that do things in the community. Yeah, I mean, hey, they don't seem to do that much in terms of like, supporting people directly. It's like an advocacy group, right? But is she not just describing the same thing? Only they've got some links to resources on their website. Like, is that much of a difference, really?
Because they do actual real work. LGBT Alliance don't. They don't do anything. They just do programs for people with homelessness issues or drug and alcohol addiction. They have all these services or signposts to services because they do actual real.
It could be both, to be fair, but
work. LGBT Alliance don't.
I just don't trust a fucking thing she says.
Do anything. They just amplify things into the media through lobbying. That's it. That's what they do, and that's a proven fact. So why are we here talking about? Why is Helen here talking about women and trying to pretend she's some way altruistic and cares? This, there's no evidence of it, Helen. So once you start,
there's no evidence of anything you've been saying.
Show me some evidence, then maybe I'll come along with that idea. But there is only ever evidence of you talking about trans people. So,
Write to my employer.
This is true.
To get me sacked because I wrote a post.
They did do this.
Transgender, lesbian,
Sperm producing female.
She's so proud of this, and to say it in front of all these people. You called a poem lesbian sperm producing female. This is disgusting.
Hold on. No.
That was Bev Jackson.
That's a question in a moment.
I do attack you because I don't agree with you, and I have a right
You attack people because you don't agree with, fuck me.
to do that. I write about. I attack your ideas.
You don't attack people's ideas, you attack people. You've attacked Helen Joyce repeatedly. Sat there here, now watching it back. Fucking being smug about this shit. You've attacked her repeatedly. You don't attack people's ideas, you attack them as people. You discredit them by linking them to other people that are also bad or are bad. Like, guilt by association is attacking a person. It's attacking more than one person, if anything. Like, no, seriously though, like, what idea are you attacking when you're saying, well, you just sound like the Nazis when you say that? Like, that's not a critique of an idea. Like, to say that Hitler drank water and I drank a water just now, you could guilt by association me there, but like that doesn't mean that we should all not drink water because fucking Hitler did. You know what I'm saying?
If you don't like somebody with just 1,000 followers on Twitter having a go at you, then you're very insecure. So what happened was
Well, you don't like people going after you when you like bait them constantly. Maybe you're a bit insecure.
to go into the office at work and they say, why do these people want to try to get you disciplined? Well, it's because I'm trans. They don't think I should be working for the ambulance service and expressing myself, and they don't believe that I can be a lesbian.
This is true.
Any woman that is intimate with me.
I'm a huge Nazi, just so we're clear.
It's up to her how she describes herself.
I don't understand relationships are two-way.
With my female penis.
that was the F-bomb.
It doesn't matter what you think.
When I fuck men.
I'm trans. They don't think I should be working for the ambulance service and expressing myself, and they don't believe that I can be a lesbian.
It's because I'm trans. You remember when like it was all this, it was the jokes to be like, oh, is this because I'm black? Which I'm not saying that black people do that, but like she's literally doing that. Like, come on.
It's true.
Any woman that is intimate with me, it's up to her how she describes herself.
I don't understand relationships are two-way.
With my
She talked over herself saying, when I fuck men.
female penis.
With her female penis. Like, is this part of the performance art? Is it? Like, why? Why would you talk about yourself that way?
That was the F-bomb.
It doesn't matter what you think.
When I fuck men with my female penis.
She's really proud of that. Like, I don't know about anyone else. I would not be proud of that. I'd be like, fuck, I got drunk and said some crazy fucking shit last night. Because she's like drunk as shit by now. Like, is this really like good representation? Should we be going around talking about our female penises? You're not even a female. And a female wouldn't have a penis. Like, oh my god. Embarrassing.
Because in public they will, but in private they'll fuck me.
That was my bomb. Because what I'm saying there is her...
It's not much of a bomb. Yeah, there's people out there who'll like jack off to trans people in private and then hate on them in public. Yeah, it's hypocritical. Is it a bombshell? I mean, we're not talking about, like, fucking hell. Maybe in the right conversation that'd be a good point, but like, where are we going with this?
Morality is false.
Helen's movement is a misogynistic movement.
Hold on.
And now it's just, you're misogynistic. Now it's just insults. Like, your movement is misogynistic. Like, really? Isn't it misogynist anyway? I don't think it's misogynistic. I think it's misogynist.
Because it makes men ashamed of who they are.
Why don't we go special to the audience and then you can make that point?
Men aren't fucking ashamed of the fact that they jack off to transsexuals because of let women speak or some shit. Like, or sex matters. Sorry, I think that's the one. I get them confused. Like, what? It doesn't... Fuck me. Oh, Jesus Christ, I'm dying. Sunny day, enjoy our high. Let's just keep going. I really want to finish this video. I probably need to go pretty much straight after because I need to make dinner and it's getting on a bit already. But oh my god, this is painful.
True, like, because I'm saying that, you know, this idea that men have to hide themselves and their true desires.
What's that got to do with this though? And what's that got to do with fucking sex matters? A thing about women, not a man jacking off to someone who used to be a man. I think that's probably the furthest thing from her mind, quite frankly.
So this is what I talk about when LGB Alliance wrote to my employer when I was working for the ambulance service, trying to get me sacked. That was back in...
By the way, I think this is always cringe, unless they've really shown some kind of indication that they would not care for everyone properly and professionally, which she comes across extremely unprofessional, but I wouldn't watch something like that and be like, oh my god, I got to get this person fucking fired. Like, I wouldn't want to get anyone fired because they're still people. This person still needs a living and still needs a livelihood. I would never dream of like trying to get someone sacked, but I also don't know the story behind it. So
September 2022. So that came about because I'd written a poem, believe it or not, called Transgender Lesbian Sperm Producing Female. Catchy. And we did...
Yeah. That's what you call something when you're not actually very talented, but you want people to read it.
Within that poem, there's quite a lot of pejorative language, I suppose you could call it. And I'd obviously written about LGB Alliance in my blog, and I've been on TV talking about them. That is why they attacked me. That's why they tried to get me disciplined, because I think I'd called Bev Jackson a dickhead on Twitter, and she used that as well. And she also said...
Okay, still, I don't agree with taking people's jobs away from them, trying to get people sacked over this kind of shit. But when she talks about, it's in the description, the subsequent attacks on social media which it led to, I felt the effects of it for weeks after. She brings this on herself. You call people dickheads on Twitter, yeah, they're probably going to respond, and maybe their fucking dipshit fans are going to follow them and like send you fucking hate messages. I don't agree with that kind of thing. I think that's wrong, but you bring it on yourself.
That I should not be able to call myself a lesbian, you know, and I still have that letter. I'll put it up on the screen now. And what's amazing about that is one of the central myths.
I'm writing to complain about the social media activity of one of your staff. They tweet with your ambulance service mentioned in their bio, often full uniform. Last few days, they've been attempting to bully, intimidate one of our volunteers via Twitter. See attached tweets, which guess what isn't involved in here? Guess what isn't being shown? Quick scan of their account also reveals abuse towards women and overt homophobia. Okay. I still think this is cringe, but I can see why someone would feel compelled to do this. And it's interesting she's not showing the evidence that they're showing, because I bet if you saw the kind of tweets, I still wouldn't agree with going after her job. I don't agree with that with anyone. see the need to take away someone's livelihood as long as far as I know, they do a good job and don't fuck around, you know? But I bet if we saw that evidence, it would become a bit clearer as to why people find her so irksome. Because to me, it's very obvious why people find her irksome, and I have no trouble believing that she acts this way on Twitter, because so many trans people do, especially trans activists. And it's, why do we want people that are so fucking abusive and angry and constantly going off on people who have any opinion different to theirs? Why do we want those people representing us? Like, I wouldn't want anyone to fucking have to be represented by that shit, but I'm the one that is represented by that shit, you know what I'm saying?
Of the gender critical movement is that Maya Forstater lost her.
But she's gonna be completely fine with the fact that she's a fucking cyberbully because it's justified and it's moral in her mind. Like, that's the thing we absolutely need to get rid of, is this fucking programming where people feel justified because they're trans and because someone called them a man in the street and they wouldn't stop harassing Glenner, and then one of his fans like fucking went off on them. Like, oh my god, it's sad, it's pathetic. I don't see the point. I keep forgetting what I'm talking about because I'm getting tired.
Job because she misgendered somebody, or she doesn't accept somebody that trans women are women. But that's a myth. It's not true. Nothing about that is true. Well, they tried to get me sacked.
It's a myth, but she's not going to show any of it. And also, two wrongs don't make a right, you know? You could say that in both cases.
They attempted to do that, and as I got more and more amplified into the media, because people asked me to come back, they did it more.
Yeah, which is a risk that you're taking, not just when trying to be famous or being in the media more, but also when presenting yourself in the way that you do. And I'm not talking about your dress, I'm talking about the way you behave and the way you talk on social media.
More and more. And it escalated to the point where Graham Linehan was finding pictures of me in fetish clubs and putting them onto I think the account was called Troony Troons or something. And this.
Well, yeah, because you're trolling each other at this point. It's self-perpetuating at a certain point. No one knows who fucking threw the first punch anymore because you're both just being cunts to each other.
Is happening. So they've got no problem with trying to humiliate and degrade and dehumanize and demonize trans women through doing that. But when I call myself a lesbian and I attack them for having
yeah, you attack them, exactly. We've solved the whole thing. There we go. I don't need to listen to anymore. We've solved the whole problem. Stop attacking people.
Anti-trans views, suddenly I'm the one that faces the music because I'm a public-facing employee. I don't have any power. Like I said, I had 1,000 followers on Twitter at that point, and I'm just employed by a huge company.
You don't have any power. You're the one that gets to fucking sit up there with, like, fairly well-known people and spout bullshit. How many trans people would kill to be in that position so they can actually have a conversation and actually try and air some grievances with, like, the gender critical movement without just being a prick, and try and show a bit of a different side of trans where it's a bit more dignified and about a little bit of compromise and understanding that we are guests in women's spaces at best.
Organisation, and I have no power whatsoever to fight that in a liable court or anything like that. They have all the power. So, you know, fuck
I don't
them.
think that's true. I don't think that's true at all. I think if someone goes far enough, you can probably fuck them even if you don't have that much means. Don't you have, like, I'm sure you have the right to, like, free representation in court and shit like that.
So, no, I don't think that if somebody's undergone full gender reassignment surgery, it makes a difference, because I don't think that we make women by castrating men. So I don't.
We don't make women. That's not what happens, Helen.
By looking, I can tell by their face whether they're male or female. But also, just because somebody has undergone castration doesn't change the fact that they're bigger, they're stronger, they've gone through.
That's all myth.
Male pattern violence. It doesn't change their voice if they're traumatizing women in a space where.
Why is she catastrophizing the idea of?
This really isn't all myth. I don't know how she can say that. I mean, when she said the thing about making women, it's because that's the suggestion. Like, if they were post-op, would you be okay with it? And she's saying no, because that doesn't make you a woman. That's literally what she's saying. Like, she just falls back on it when she has nothing really to say. It's like, no, it's not like, no, it's not like that. There's none of that going on.
You know, women are little timid creatures that are, you know, that isn't the problem for women. The problem for women is misogyny in the culture, which Helen upholds.
Soy as fuck. Doesn't make any attempt to actually unpack that. Just the buzzword, that'll do. It's misogyny. People are mean to women. Have you ever thought that maybe men should just stop being mean to women? Have you ever thought of that? Why don't men just stop being mean to women?
By just saying that, you know, it's misogynistic.
There's lots of questions in the audience.
Right, but just saying what? I should stop indulging this fucking
they're traumatizing women in a space where
Why is she catastrophizing the idea of, but women are
She's talking about the kinds of things that could occur.
little timid creatures that are, that isn't the problem for women. The problem for women is misogyny in the culture, which Helen upholds. By just saying that, is misogynistic.
And then there's lots of questions in the audience I want to go to.
Oh, gosh.
For a start, let's get this out of the way. Helen doesn't care how somebody's trans. She doesn't care about, it wouldn't matter if somebody had an XY chromosome edited and suddenly they had X, XX or whatever. That wouldn't matter, doesn't matter. The thing that
Well, yeah, because you're not naturally born a woman.
Helen Joyce's problem is pathological repulsion. She's repulsed by when I came into that room initially, and I met those people.
Oh, you're just repulsed. Okay, great.
Well, I went up to Helen and I said, hello, Helen, because I'm polite, even though I disagree with her on everything in the world.
She knows who you are, bro.
I said, hello, Helen, and she couldn't even look me in the eye. She had this really strange, timid demeanour about her. And that
because you come across like a fucking terrorist. Like, not quite, but not far off.
Fear. It's transphobia. That's what it was. And she's nervous because I doubt many people in that room had ever heard a trans person speak like that before to them. That isn't who is not Debbie Hayton or somebody that's on their side. I think it's.
Oh, do they not count as trans women suddenly? Because they're on their side. Sides cuck, by the way. Huge sides cuck. Get out of this idea of the two sides. Engage with the arguments. But you don't want to do that because that's too difficult, so you just make it about good guys and bad guys. Like, you're literally a child, if that's what you think, by the way.
It's very rare for them to be polite with a trans person who identifies like me as transgender, as a woman, as female.
Speculation.
As Freda. Freda do what I want any old time. Because that frightens them, and it's palpable.
It's palpable, is it? She doesn't seem very scared of you. She might think that if you're approaching her, you might fucking do something because you seem nuts.
Speak to my experience, and I know that the women I meet, the women I know, reject everything if sex matters.
So we've got anecdotes. Well, the people I know. There's more women in the world than the people you fucking know.
Yeah, that's true.
That once sex matters, if sex matters.
Yeah, that's true. I should do that. I should just react to all my videos and just be like, yeah, true, yeah, no, yeah, that's true, yeah, I'm based there, yeah, that's true. So douchey.
In a world where the LGBT Alliance and LGBT Alliance don't represent gay, lesbian and bisexual people, because I know those people in Manchester. They reject that completely. And they have to invent stories about lesbian dating sites
this is true.
Dating clubs to get that
Jenny Watson.
mail. I'm sure you've employed the services of Toby Young many
That's
times.
the Free Speech Union.
I know how it works.
She really loves the guilt by association.
And it's very depressing. But we are human beings at the end of the day. And that's not how we live in the real
Mark
world.
understands exactly what I mean here.
You can. Nobody's going to prosecute you for that.
No,
they're not.
Seriously, please.
No, they're not. Never. No, you can come up to me now and call me a man. Nobody's going to do it. I don't care, because it doesn't matter to me. What matters?
You do care. You clearly care. I'm sorry. I am going to speculate on you on this one. You look fucking upset as shit, even when Peter was like suggesting you're a trans woman, not a woman. And whenever she made like little digs about, the only one that testosterone isn't deep in my voice, it's clear that it bothers you, at least a little bit.
To me is that a very small section of society that choose to express themselves in a certain way are being demonised, sexualised, and we're being turned into...
You know how she was talking about fucking people with her female penis earlier? Now she's got a problem with trans people being sexualised.
Hold on, let her finish.
I am, yeah. Well, if I sexualise myself, that's my choice.
Do you not think? So to me, if a woman goes out wearing like really skimpy clothes, that isn't her sexualizing herself necessarily, and that's not an invitation for her to be sexualized necessarily. Do you not think on a certain level that if you sexualize yourself this openly, that might kind of invite other people to sexualize you? I don't know.
It's any woman's choice. But
that's misogyny that they were describing by laughing at that.
Gender critical.
Oh, you're a misogynist for doing... Jesus Christ. It's so easy. It's so easy. I wish I was one of these people because it's so easy. You don't have to think. You've got it all laid out for you. You've got all the buzzwords that explain everything. We're like all intersectional feminists now, so like everything links to everything. It's bullshit, man. It's bullshit.
Now, it is me who's gender critical.
That's true.
But the gender critical movement is a misogynistic movement.
Okay.
They laugh because they know it's true. Let's just remember that.
Laugh because it's stupid.
This whole audience is Helen Joyce fan club. That's it. They clap because they're nervous. They laugh.
And the sad thing is, if you engaged and made some sense and not talked about your fucking cock, there might have been one or two people, even if not very many, that you could have made think twice about their beliefs. But you're not interested in doing that, so there's no point. So you're not really an advocate. You're a performance artist making a twat out of yourself in front of a bunch of people and calling it performance art.
What I say, because they know that, you know, they're among friends. You know, they totally disagree with me and want to ridicule me anyway, and they go on to ridicule me after this event by posting pictures of
Oh, her life is so hard.
me on Twitter, zooming in up my skirt. I'll show you the evidence of that
The hard life of an internet provocateur.
later. But that is what they do. They demonise me. But there's
Well, they demonise me after all the fucking demonising you've done the whole time.
there's no challenge to any of Ellen's thoughts, even though they're all complete garbage, and we know they are, and we know that they're only based on prejudice. There's no, like I said, she's not there to...
No, there isn't any challenge to her thoughts, apart from Peter Tatchell, maybe, because you're not doing it.
stand for women. She'll turn up at Kelly J. Keen's event the following Sunday and claim this is some kind of victory. But there is no victory. There is no prize at the end of this movement.
What does that even mean? If she says there's no prize at the end of this movement long enough, which I think they disagree. I think having their own spaces and not having to walk into someone's penis when you're trying to get changed after going to the gym is probably a victory. But you seem to think it's something else. You seem to think there's some slippery slope here, so I don't know.
For women.
People often say that women are rooted in biology, the biology of sex. And that is true. That is true. But also, there is now new emerging evidence from a whole raft of studies around the world that trans women
off my red.
have differential brain structures and processes compared to other women.
Now, this is where we disagree.
Oh, the brain structures argument. I've seen stuff about this before. I don't know how interesting it is. She tries to cut in and then he gets pissed off at her.
Let me finish. Let me finish. That is the evidence
I
from
upset Peter a little bit.
20 studies.
Yes, because you wouldn't let him speak. Whenever other people interrupted you, fucking Helen Joyce of all people was telling them to shut up. But when he's trying to speak, even when these two try and speak, you cut in. It's ridiculous. How does she not see this? How can you watch yourself back and not notice, like, the flaws? You know what I mean? Because that's what jumps straight out to me if I watch myself doing anything. Like, I've done so many gigs because I'm a musician, right? Sometimes there'll be videos of them. Every single tiny thing I do wrong, that's what I notice. And it can spoil entire performances for me because I missed a certain guitar part or I missed a certain note singing. But I don't get any evidence that this person really is able to, like, self-criticize, you know?
Now, that is not a basis alone on which we should proceed and make a decision, but it is strong evidence that identifying as trans is not a whim or a fantasy, it's not a delusion, it is rooted in the brain biological processes and structures of trans women. And the same, although the studies
doesn't matter, does it?
with trans men. I think we need to...
It doesn't matter what it is. Some people want to know the truth. And not wanting to know the truth and then spreading whatever you think it is anyway is stupid, quite frankly. If you don't want to know the truth, then why talk about it? Why get involved in these things?
Look at that research, not dismiss it like some of you have just now, and acknowledge that if it is true, and it appears to be, there's a very prestigious study...
I think it's interesting, but it's not necessarily, you know...
that do suggest that the brain structures of trans women are...
It's not necessarily what?
...different from those
See, she can't agree with this because this is like transmed stuff.
Of men, and more inclined to those of women.
I disagree with that anyway.
Don't interrupt me, though.
Don't interrupt me, though.
Sorry, it's just I don't think we have different brains.
Yeah.
Me being freda has got nothing to do with that. It's just how I function in the world. Like, you can...
So narcissistic. Every time it comes back to her and, like, her life and, like, her anecdotes. Do you think there's not a reason why none of these people are constantly talking about themselves?
Call me a man or whatever. It doesn't matter. It doesn't actually matter. But
I'm saying the ideas are ephemeral.
Set up over, or like the
You're saying the ideas are ephemeral. Great.
modern period. Let's just think about the modern period, the last 100 years. It is no effort at all for people to call me Freda and call me she, her, miss, whatever, madam, whatever they want to call me. It's not a problem for anyone. The problem, it isn't. It might be a problem for people that have, they might find me incongruent. You might find me a problem. And having his own record of saying trans people are a problem to a sane
I dropped the bomb.
Well, my aspiration
Watch your
is to be
face.
a problem to a sane
She
world.
laughed it off.
But there is no fucking sane world. No effort at all for people to call me Freda and call me she, her, miss, whatever, madam, whatever they want to call me. It's not a problem for anyone. The problem, it isn't. It might be a problem for people that have, they might find me incongruent. You might find me a problem. And having his own record of saying trans people are a problem to a sane
I dropped the bomb.
Well, my aspiration
Watch your
is to be
face.
a problem
That's not a bomb, bro.
to a sane
She
world.
laughed it off.
But there is no fucking sane world. If
That's
want
it. That's the
if you
crux of
want
it.
to aspire to a sane world, that is a really
dark road.
That's a dark road to go down.
Why? Why is that? Is it because you've read too many pretentious books telling you so?
She laughs nervously because she knows she's busted. So it starts to descend into nonsense here.
You can tell somehow someone you don't know when they're laughing nervously.
Because, you know, the LGBT Alliance would love it if Peter was on their side. That's what they want, really, because Peter would be a great, you know, asset to them with his history. But he's not, because he's a human rights person. He recognises where the power is. He understands lobby groups. He understands that because he's been in this game long enough. And when I said, and I will repeat it again...
I can't watch anymore. This is fucking nonsense. I've made it through 57 fucking 25 of this ridiculous fucking video. I'm not watching anymore. Fuck this shit, man. This is fucking propaganda. I will have my space back on the fucking screen now. Yes. Like at the start, it was all like, well, I wasn't here to debate. It's like it's a performance. Which to me, that sounds like massive cope. To me, that sounds like the only way you can believe that is because you know it went so fucking badly and you know you made such a terrible job debating this whole thing that was the only recourse you have in order to not admit that you're kind of in the wrong in the way that you do things, and that the only thing you're capable of doing is pushing trans rights back. But yeah, that's pretty much it. She seems proud of talking about her female penis on the fucking stage in front of a bunch of people. To me, I'm always going to think, an audience like that, yeah, it's going to be hostile, but maybe you can convert 2 or 3 people into at least having second thoughts and at least maybe seeing a bit more of the human side of trans people than they originally would have. But she is not going to be able to do that. She can't reach any of these people, so I don't know why the fuck she's even there. And I don't think she really understands that kind of thing anyway, so... I don't know. She's read a lot of books. She doesn't... Maybe they're the wrong books. Maybe she's just not able to understand them. I don't fucking know. I don't know what the problem is, but it's fucked. People like that need to not be involved in this kind of shit. I'm not saying, actually no, I'm going to say this. I would definitely do better because, you know, I'm not just making shit up. And she's doing something completely brainless. Hitting the triggers harder is only going to make them go, yeah, true. Yeah, yeah, I mean, she's not interested in debate, so I don't know why she appears on debates. It's obviously some kind of ploy to get attention and to try and talk about the things she wants to, but what's the point? What's the point in any of it? Like, you make a fool of yourself. How many people have laughed in her face on, like, TV debates when she says something completely ridiculous? And if you can't self-criticize and you can't realize what the actual issues are with things that you do, then you've got no chance. Like, you're never going to be able to reach people because you're never going to change because you're always going to be like that. I couldn't watch myself if I put in that performance. Bearing in mind, I didn't drink or anything. I wouldn't be like fucking drunk as a skunk there, for one thing. But if I saw myself put in that performance and I watched it back, I would be fucking humiliated. I would be extremely embarrassed of myself. It will be the kind of feeling like, you know, when you go out and you get way too drunk and you say all kinds of shit that is kind of stupid and you're like, you don't even know why you said that. You don't even think things like that. Like, and then you wake up the next morning and you remember some of it and it's like, oh, Jesus Christ. That's how I would feel. And she seems proud of herself because all you have to do is just never admit fault, just never really meaningfully criticize yourself, always have a reason for everything you're doing, even when it's completely stupid. Like, oh, this is performance art, so me making a complete fool of myself is actually it makes total sense. It's like listening to Vorsh fans every time he says something stupid, where it's like, no, you don't understand the 37D chess fucking game going on in his head. He's like actually doing this all tactically, you know what I'm saying? Like,